the fan because I really like having it.
No, it's great.
Okay. Erica did move it over for me. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Laura Simon, Sean Mora, Jeannie Kerr, and Jean Marie Wolf. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Mr. Ruben Aurelio, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official Dr. Kay Vang, Director of Educational Services Ms. Veronica Miranda, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board Ms. Erica Madrigal, and our Director of Technology Mr. Derek Machado. Also on the dais this evening is our Student Board Representative Ms. Carolyn Wagner, this is her last evening with us, but more to come on that shortly. Also in the audience tonight, St. Helena High School Principal Mr. Benjamin Cinto, RLS Middle School Principal Mr. Andrew Ryan, St. Helena Elementary School Principal Dr. Carmen Emery, and St. Helena Primary School Principal Mrs. Rebecca Rocha. We are delighted that you're viewing in person, on Zoom, on television channel 27, or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthenelenaunified.org. In connection with items 4A and 4B, the board received information and provided staff with direction. If you could please join me in the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item 6A, which is public comments at our board meetings. These are for comments for items not on the agenda this evening. There is a 3-minute limit on public comment, but please feel free to come to the podium. And if anybody would like to make public comment, you may state your name or remain anonymous.
Okay, I'm a little shorter. Good evening. My name is Hector Mariquin. I am the master of Napa Valley Masonic Lodge, number 93 here in St. Helena. And I come here today with a few of my fellow officers from the lodge, our junior warden, Jay Hutchinson, and our senior deacon, Stephen Adams. And we're here just to say hello and to present to the board a little something that we have here. It's a proclamation for April 2024 being Public Schools Month. As some of you know, a lot of organizations, whatever they may be, whoever they may be, a lot of times will have certain proclamations or will celebrate a certain aspect of something or whatever. But Masonry, we do. On April we celebrate public schools, and public schools is really truly integral to the foundation of Masonry. It is something that we truly value, and this month is we are celebrating that. And in commemoration, we'd like to present to the board our proclamation, and I'm going to give that to you guys as well. And with that said, we'll also read it to you, and I will have our junior warden go ahead and do that, Brother Jay.
Good evening, everyone. Oh. Master's Proclamation. April 2024 is Public Schools Month, shining the light of Freemasonry. Whereas California public schools continue to face acute challenges related to pandemic recovery, chronic underfunding, and a loss of students, teachers, and staff. And whereas California Masons have for more than a century supported public education through the observance of Public Schools Month and its related programs and initiatives. And whereas supporting public schools is a bedrock principle of California Masonry, and whereas a fair, just, and equitable civil society is predicated on a strong system of public education. As Worshipful Master of Napa Valley Lodge number 93, Free and Accepted Masons of California, I proclaim April 2024 to be Public Schools Month in support of St. Helena Unified School District. As California Masonry celebrates more than 100 years of Public Schools Month, support for our schools, teachers, and students has never been more important. Even with the return to in-person learning, local schools are facing challenges related to funding, staffing, and support. The result is that students are falling behind. In many underfunded districts, the achievement gap is widening at an extraordinary pace. Therefore, it is up to organizations like the Masons of California to help close these deficits in funding, technology, and materials. Our schools require these resources to ensure that students of all learning abilities have equal access to resources and specialized educators, all the while providing a safe and healthy environment in which to grow. Since the 19th century, Napa Valley Lodge number 93 in St. Helena continues its vocal and active support of our local public school programs, donating time, money, and energy. This backing is our cornerstone and needed to help fulfill the promise of rightful public education. In that spirit, I call on all Napa Valley Masons, teachers, administrators, civic and city leaders to take this opportunity to work together as individuals, lodge members, and as Napa County residents to aid their local schools, tutor and mentor students in the community, organize fundraising events for school ground enhancements. Let's all work together as friends and neighbors, ensuring that our school ground enhancements. Let's all work together as friends and neighbors, ensuring that our students, their teachers, aides, and administrators are prepared for success in education and in life. Sincerely and fraternally, Hector I. Ameriquin, Worshipful Master, and attest Sean Harris, Past Master and Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for letting us do that, and to also let you know one of this week basically is going to be our lodge's real push in celebrating this for this month. Tomorrow, as some of you know, we're going to be sponsoring a teachers appreciation lunch. Pretty much we're doing a shotgun approach and providing all the teachers Ray Ray's tacos tomorrow afternoon. And Saturday we have our public schools presentation and check presentation at the lodge. And then on Wednesday, the brothers and I will be helping serve dinner at the primary school open house and spring concert. So again, thank you.
Appreciate it. On behalf of the district and the board, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your unending support of public education. I mean, you guys have been longtime collaborators and community partners with this district, so thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
And
Thank you.
Thank you
very
very
proud
much.
to have this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe we can put that back over there. Is there anyone else who would like to publicly comment on items not on the agenda this evening? Ms. Madrigal, anything? Okay, you.
Hi, my name's Coco Lopez. Hi, my name's Coco Lopez. I am Vice President of the St. Helena Public Schools Foundation, head of Give Big, and I have 2 kids in the district. And I'm just going to try and publicly comment more often because all sorts of things get thrown my way. And what I wanted to mention today is that I would love it if the district created a little more clarity around what the protocol is for parents or families when they have an issue within the district. Who do they speak to at what point, and where do those conversations go? So I had my own issue earlier and realized that after 10 years in the district, I had no idea who I was supposed to go to with these issues. And during the process, it became very clear to me that I had no idea what was being done with the information that I turned over during the course of that issue. And it just, I believe that if parents had a little more insight into what the process is when there is an issue, we all might be able to work through issues a little bit better. On the other end, I don't know whether or not this is needed because it's completely opaque to the outside world, but it would be nice to know on an official level what is expected from teachers and administrators when they're fielding a difficult issue, and what makes something an official complaint versus a parent who is just complaining. Things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the agenda? Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to the presentation portion of the evening, and we're going to start with item A, which is the student board report on the Green Initiative for St. Louis.
Good evening. Tonight's a little bit different. Obviously, we're talking about the green initiatives in our district, and I went school by school and then district-wide. Next slide. Thank you. So, as I reported before, the high schools recently had a new partnership with both a park, which means our club. Sure. Is that better? That means our clubs on campus are more connected to our natural spaces in our community, which is obviously very important to us for volunteer opportunities and obviously for cleanups. So one of our clubs that is a huge part of our environmental learning is our Interact Club. They do gleaning, which I recently learned of, which is picking fruit from local homeowners' trees and then distributing them to the food pantry and even our own culinary department and then other residential areas. And then this is a way to just reduce waste in our community, which I thought was very interesting. And then our horticulture class also participates in different ways. In the 300 wing, if anybody knows where that is, they planted drought-resistant plants in order to reduce our water usage. So just kind of smaller things that make a bigger impact in the long term. Our environmental club had a representative from the Upper Valley Disposal come and discuss ways to initiate a compost system, which we are still working on. We're not the best, but we're moving forward, so improvements. And then on Earth Day, our Interact Club is working with Eagle Scouts to replace mile markers and clear the trail on Oak Hill Mine, which is, it's always great to see partnerships within the community, so I was really excited about that. And then another thing not mentioned on the slide is a couple of the classes at the high school, like AP Environmental, that really stress sustainability and the issues with pollution in our world and in our community. So it's part of our curriculum as well. Next slide, please. So at RLS, they have what's called a green team, which is a group of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that come together and patrol the quad during lunch and break. And it seems like they've been relatively successful. They make sure everybody knows what's going in the trash and what's being composted and recycled. And it's really nice that there's the student accountability. It's looking to expand next year, so hopefully that'll be successful. In 8th grade, they work with Mr. McLean, their science teacher, and work on the nature trail and in the garden. And then in Science and Society, which is an 8th grade elective, they talk about diet and nutritional balance, which obviously is very important as you're growing up and being active. In 7th grade, that's really where you hit a lot of like the plant sciences and photosynthesis. So it's really where your curriculum is meeting hand-to-hand learning. So they go out to the garden and they plant seeds for flowers and vegetables, and then they harvest them that next August. So each class kind of reaps the benefit from the last, and it just kind of creates this continual cycle. I thought that was also great. They also donate the food to our school lunch. So it will all kind of work together here. Yeah, next slide, please. At the St. Helena Elementary, the garden is also a huge part of how they learn sustainability. So really, it's the 5th graders that take on the responsibility of the garden. They compost, they amend, they weed, they test soil acidity, they do all sorts of things that are related to the garden. And it's really a year-long process with their 5th grade teachers where they're planting with the third graders, and then they water them, they go in, they weed, then they harvest, they cook everything, and it's all up to nutritional standards. So I just think it's a great program for the kids to be able to work with their hands. They're always having fun in the garden. They're working with each other. The fifth graders get to be sort of a mentor, get a little bit of leadership experience. So it's a really great place for them to have fun and learn about stuff in more of a relaxed way. And here are some photos on the next slide. They really do enjoy it. I'm really glad that we have these spaces available to them. Next slide. So at the primary school, I actually took this from Gopal's presentation and spoke with him a little bit via email, and I found that it was astounding that 73% of their energy usage was offset from their solar panels. So obviously grateful to have that in place. We're saving money. And then for every grade, there's an emphasis on recycling. They do lots of art projects. They're very cute. And with all their excess paper, they really stress recycling. And then they also have garden beds located behind their classrooms that they use for their hands-on learning as well. So really, it's nice to see that at all of our schools, we're utilizing our natural spaces and using it to learn. So, as most of you know, and if you do not, now you know, next year the district will have 2 new electric buses that will help reduce our carbon footprint, which we're very happy about. I'm kind of jealous I don't get to ride in one of them. But, I mean, I'm so happy about that. The maintenance supplies on all of our campuses are non-toxic and are made up of recyclable materials. So we're making our campuses safe, clean, and eco-friendly, which is very good for the little friends who run around and get into chemicals. At our facilities, we have LED lights, and then in our deferred maintenance, we're looking into updating our HVAC system, HVAC units in place for heat pump equivalents, which would also help reduce our carbon footprint and our electricity bill. So combined, solar is estimated to offset 55% of existing usage, whether virtually connected or unconnected. I feel like that's a decent number. We're always looking to improve, but I'm happy with the direction the district is headed, and I'm excited. And then also, during this spring break, teachers and staff conserved energy by unplugging everything they had. I mean, I saw them on the last day. All the refrigerators, all the printers, all of their fridges, everything got unplugged. And these are the practices that are really going to save us money in the long term if we're practical with it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Way to go, right? A lot of good stuff happening. Thank you, Carolyn, as always. Appreciate it. Trustees, any questions or clarifications for? Okay. Okay, well, we're going to follow that up with our recognition of you, Carolyn Wagner, as our student representative to the board. So with that, you're rounding a lot of things out. This is the sentimental time of year. And even though I don't have kids in the district anymore, I can already feel my eyes watering because, yeah, exactly, because it's time to release you to the next chapter. And with that, everybody's going to take a little moment here to go around and give you the accolades and the encouragement that you so deserve. So I'm going to start with Mr. Heller over there, and we're going to go around. So sit back and soak it up.
Yeah, Carolyn. It was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better at CSBA this year. One of the things that I really appreciate about you is your genuine passion in going to the other sites and learning about all the different things that you recall once when you were a student and kind of reflecting on your journey from the primary to the elementary to RLS. And just the way you approached this position in a very serious way and you took your responsibility seriously. So you did your student body well and you reflected well of your community and your parents. So thank you very much for your service. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Carolyn, I, for the first time, have sat on a board where we have a student representative. You have set the bar very high. I've always been impressed. I've always learned from you when you present. It is not easy to do that. And so we as adults I'm watching you going, wow, the time you spend, the detail you're going to do some great things. I'm very proud of just being able to have sat here by side and see you present. I'm in awe, and like you said, you're going to come back. I'll hold you to that as we get to see what amazing things you have done, as your parents have also supported you through all of this. So thank you for letting us borrow her. Thank you.
All right, Miss Carolyn, thank you for being the voice of our students. I appreciate your monthly board reports from a student's perspective. More importantly, I appreciate your engagement, support, and meeting with me to discuss partnerships, collaboration. I've just enjoyed meeting with you and your team, the ladies that you brought from the high school. It was very engaging. I appreciated your enthusiasm. You are just a role model for all students, and I am just super grateful for the opportunity to have worked with you this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I feel like I've had the pleasure of watching this young woman grow because my daughter fits in the Wagner family in between some of the girls. So it's just been really rewarding to see how much you've grown. I won't say grown into a perfect person because you have been doing it all along and you've just started out that way, and just seeing your enthusiasm that's been said and the dedication and how much you put into this, and a shout out definitely to your mom and dad. It really is great to have parents that support, and I've been on enough committees with your mother throughout time, but that's a great thing. And I know like 20 years from now you'll probably be sitting back here as a board member because I think you kind of follow in your family's involvement footsteps. But I think it's wonderful. I'm glad St. Helena has been a great experience, and I promise you the next 4 years are going to be really fun. So congratulations.
We're going to miss you. I just want to start with that. But thank you very much for your time and your dedication to our district and to our students. One of the things that I ditto the remarks before me, so I'm not taking the easy way out with that, but one of the things I want to say is you are amazing as far as your presentations because they're very interesting, they're relevant, and you are so articulate. There are many times when I'm not able to find my words and I think of you and I think, why can I not be as articulate as Carolyn? And I'm very serious when I say that. I'm so excited for you and your future, and you have great many years ahead of you, and thank you very much for everything. We're really appreciative of you. Thank you.
I think I'm going to have to hold this so I can look at you. Carolyn Elizabeth Ann Wagner. I was just thinking about what to say today. I'm going to cry. Because I was just talking with a friend about how you have different friends in your life, and you can have a fun friend, an adventure friend, a boring friend, and an obnoxious friend. And when I think about you, not comparing your friendships, but you're the mature friend, or you're the mature kid, right? You come in here, you're eloquent, you're poised. You say things better than I would say, just like you're better with words than I am. And I love seeing your parents in the audience smiling with pride. It's not the first time they're here, as you well know. And you do adulting well already. So have fun and good luck, and we'll miss you.
You don't get to say ditto.
I know. Thank you, because now I can't keep it together, and I wrote down all of these things that I'm not going to be able to get through. But I just wanted to say that I feel like I have to start at the beginning because I had the privilege of interviewing you for this position. And I just feel like in that interview, the last student rep we had was fabulous, and I thought, oh my gosh, how can we repeat this? And in the interview, I realized, we're going to be just fine. Like Jeannie said, she is quite articulate, quite mature. This is going to be smooth sailing and such a wonderful experience for you too. And I've seen how much you came to us confident and articulate, but I've seen how much you've grown the past 2 years. I mean, now you're talking about deferred maintenance and you're talking about projects, and it's going to serve you well. I'm so excited to see what lays ahead of you, because I think I'm so excited to see what you do and the accomplishments that you have, because you're such a star. Thank you.
So great. So yes, I echo all of those things, but I too had to write some things down so I could stay focused. We are obviously super grateful for you for even considering doing this position, because you have a full load in your life with school and family and friends. So taking this on, we don't take that lightly when you agree to do something like that. So thank you for stepping up and doing this. We have been so fortunate to have your voice being part of our conversations, whether it's been at this dais, whether it's separate meetings you have with administrators, teachers, principals. That's a gift, and thank you for providing that with us, for us, I should say. I want to let you know that being part of this leadership team, you have fit right in. And one of the things I want you to be very proud of yourself is that you can hold your own in a room full of adults. And that's can't be said for everyone, their senior year in high school. So I want you to take great pride in that, and that you do have an articulated voice and thought process and great ideas. So don't stop using that, because you've got it. With that, on that note, I would also like to add that, if you think there's anything that we can do differently with your position as you're getting ready, don't hesitate. If we can build on something, improve something, we'd love to hear from you, because you are engaged. You are, you kind of know your boots on the ground with your peers, and we value that for that exact reason. So with that, we wish you much happiness and success as you go forward. You know where to find us. Those electric buses will be here for you. And know, as you do know, because you've lived here a long time, is that this community will always be cheering for you, no matter where you go and what you do, because you're a saint now and you're a saint forever. So we wish you all the best, and thank you.
Have to follow all of that? Oh, man. Well, Carolyn, the first word I thought of when I was thinking about what I was going to write down was the word joy, because every time you present, you seem to capture the joy of attending our schools at every level. From primary on up, you have a way of just articulating what our students feel. And that's really valuable for us, because we don't always see that or feel that. And that's just huge added value to a group that's making decisions around kids. So fantastic. I'm super excited to see what you do next, of course. I know you'll be in school. If you ever think about going into teaching, I know someone that can give you a job. So just know, if you need anything ever, don't hesitate to reach out. You have a lot of people in this room who are there to support you. Obviously, you have wonderful parents that will do that too, but anytime you need anything, please make sure you reach out. And tremendous work. I got to, see you do it for 2 years, which is fantastic. So thank you.
Okay, yeah.
And we have something for you as well.
So this is kind of...
Is it a car?
With a big fleur-de-lis on it.
That would be gift of public funds. We don't do that.
Miss Magical says photo, so. Okay.
never come this way.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for being here. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to follow that up with some entertainment. We are going to have a performance by the St. Helena High School Choir, and Mrs. Gonzalez Arredondo is here to. Would you like to come to the podium and introduce your talented students and tell us a little bit about what we're gonna listen to?
Good evening, and thank you for having us here tonight. We will be singing a song that we did for our heritage Hispanic community, and it's from Guatemala. It's called Linda Morena, which means beautiful, dark-skinned woman. Okay, and this song we also sang it at the Hawaiian Festival we attended last week. We brought the superior rating for the St. Helena Unified School District program. And district, of course, and also we have a letter from the House of Representatives acknowledging our effort and our hard work that we put here in St. Helena Unified School District. I have those for you to see, but first let's listen to the kids.
Okay. Congratulations on that. that was a treat. I was saying, like, could we just have that as the soundtrack on at all times? It was beautiful. Thank you very much for being here. It's a really beautiful song. Thank you again for coming tonight. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8A, which is facilities, and you'll need to sing your entire presentation, just so you know, to follow that. Dr. Vang, would you like to start with an introduction, please?
Yes, I've brought the team back. We have Trent Summers with Costa Studios, John Delana with Greystone West, and April with King Consulting.
Thank you very much. We are always very fortunate around the state to watch performances like that, and I usually sit back and think, I pity whoever has to go after that. And then I saw myself on the agenda following that, so I am very sorry that I will not be able to sing and vocalize as wonderfully as that. But thank you for having us back. This is going to be nowhere near as engaging or as wonderful as that is, but I'll do my best. So we're back again to talk about the work we've been doing since the last time we met, working on that proactive planning tool, and then bringing back our discussion about state funding to see how we can maximize that. Tonight we're going to talk about the summary of needs. We developed the project prioritization matrix with your construction manager and your funding consultant. And then we'll talk about a funding update to see how that's working at the state level. So, summary of facility needs. We went through these projects with you during our last board meeting. We can revisit them if you'd like, but ultimately what we came to was a list of projects that were site specific, included total project costs, and helped us really wrap our arms around the facility needs for the school moving forward. When we looked at the summary of that, we came to a total of about $83 million, and we then decided, or we then asked you to allow us to work on a way to proactively plan how to move ourselves through that number, right? One of the things that we want to hit on is, again, we do this all over the state. We never walk into a school where the funding exceeds the need, right? The need always exceeds the funding. So what we want to do during the master planning process is assure that we have a full understanding of the need and then work through a prioritization process to develop an implementation plan to best allocate the funds we have available, right? So what we've done is worked with you to develop a proactive planning tool so that we could begin to prioritize and execute projects in a way that makes the most sense for the district. We talked in the beginning about developing a matrix and holding that matrix, every project accountable to that matrix, so we could start to see what are the better projects or the more projects that are better suited to start first, and then the projects that don't necessarily meet as many of the prioritization goals that we had. You worked with Dr. Vang to work through a prioritization method so we can figure out our hierarchy there. And what we came to was an understanding that this would be the prioritization that we would like to use to assess our projects. So our top priorities are projects that prioritize warm, safe, and dry, that meet any state mandate that was handed down to the district, that met a district priority, right? And then projects that had immediate funding. We wanted to make sure we took into account campus equity. And then we also want to look at deferred funding, right? If we weren't able to get money today, maybe we could get money tomorrow, because we always want to be looking forward in that lens to make sure we maximize our community dollars to leverage them best for our students. And then we looked if there was any special conditions out there in the community. Maybe we have partners or developers or someone in the community that would champion a project. So we wanted to make sure we took account of that as well. So we took all of those projects and we created a database. This database, when we first started to present it, I had a client who said, "Congratulations, Trent, you've taken an overwhelming presentation and turned it into an overwhelming spreadsheet. That is truly masterful work." This is not, this is an overwhelming spreadsheet, but through this, some of these things can happen, right? This is not a static document. This is something that we make that has all of these projects on them, right? And then across the gray columns there, and we have access to this link, you can see that, are all of our district priorities, and we assign scores, and then we have the ability to look into what has state funding and what does not have state funding. And then we start to look at what the district match is to that. Right? So what we can do with this overwhelming spreadsheet, right, is look to best prioritize projects in a proactive way. You can now model your projects to say, maybe we want to look at a project list that would leverage state funding as heavily as possible, or maybe we want to look at a project list that is the highest ranked to all of our priorities independent of state funding, or maybe we want to look at the projects that are highest ranked for each campus to assure that we equitably split our dollars. There are multiple ways for you to model your facility needs based on different indicators. Right? We've also created this in a way that it is very easy to update. I know that may not look like that, but we have worked to develop a system that is easy to update and is reactive. We will absolutely come alongside Dr. Vang to update that whenever you would like. Right? There is, and just to kind of make a note, there is a column there for district priority that was established by Dr. Vang in the cabinet. We can go through and re-up that or investigate that whenever you'd like in a board workshop, so we can reset those. We can change the weight of the priorities, right? So that every project with simply changing the weight on one line will redistribute through all of that. So while this is an overwhelming wall of documents, what it is sort of the brain of a database. Right? That allows you to generate reports based on different sets of ideas that you'd like to explore. So if you were to say, give me the top 10 projects that would allow us to gain as much funding at the state as possible, we could give that to you very quickly. If you were to say, give me a set of projects that have the highest score across the district, we could give that to you very quickly. So you can make informed decisions based on that list and help you sort of filter that big number, right, that very large $83 million number, into quantifiable models that have different sets of rules. This is something that will stay in the back of house. This is a tool that we've given you. It's something that just sort of think of it as looking inside a computer, right? But your consultants, your funding consultants will come in and update it for you. Your construction managers will come in and update it for you. And you will then be able to work through that prioritization constantly. It is a living document that your consultant team will be able to come in and always be able to sort of keep the pulse on what's happening, because your funding will change. Your funding will change based on age and bonds, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your construction costs will change with the market, and your construction managers will be able to keep you up to date on that. So again, when we left last time, yes, it is a big number, and yes, it is a broad amount of work to tackle, but you now have a tool that will allow you to analyze and look into that group of work through many different lenses that you can change very easily as you work through that. If you'd like, we can definitely come back and run you through how to do that, how that looks in a workshop. You have the tool, it is there and it is available. We'd be glad to work you through all of that information and answer any questions you have about it, and we can definitely coordinate that through Dr. Vang. Now, that's my sad part. This is where we'll turn it over to your funding consultants, where we'll talk about how to get some money from the state, and then we'll come back to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trent. Now, as a vocal music major in college, if I had known that there was an option to sing my presentation, this would have been way more interesting. So just to let me know ahead of time next time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your funding opportunities. We covered this when I was here with Jamie back in December. We're going to sort of recap what we discussed earlier, and then just talk about your different opportunities that you have out there. When it comes to funding for your facilities, it really comes from three main areas. There's those developer fees, your local funding, and then the state and federal funding that's available. Your district has been very active throughout the years of the state school-wide facility program. And multiple different programs under that large umbrella. You've applied for new construction, modernization, facility hardship, CTE, and many other opportunities that are covered under the SFP. Back since the inception of the program, the district has received about over $13 million in state funds since 1999 under all of those programs that we listed. Clicking too quickly. Your modernization eligibility, when we ran it last year, You had a state share of eligibility of a little over $18 million that would require the district portion to be about $12 million. We then took that eligibility under the modernization program at the state, and we looked back into projects that you had done or some that you had ahead of you that you were already either under contract or in design with, and we applied those projects to that modernization eligibility and got you in line for some funding. So we have some applications that have been submitted, and then some that are in progress when that eligibility comes up this year, and those applications will be submitted to the state for a total of about $11 million. After those applications are submitted, we draw down your modernization eligibility baseline, and you come out with a remaining amount of about $5.5 million in the state share. Now, in order to tap into that, in order to submit additional applications to request those funds from the state, you'll be required to have a district share of about $3.7 million. So the state says, you know, what local dollars do you have to contribute and to your projects, and then we will kick in, you know, another 60% to those. So you have some eligibility remaining at multiple school sites across the district. Your new construction eligibility, this is still pending some historical documents that we're waiting for from the state agencies. Those state wheels at the state, they do turn, but they just turn a little slowly sometimes. So we're waiting for some additional documentation, but our demographer, Rob Murray, is very confident in your numbers that you're eligible for about $950,000 from the state for new construction eligibility. That is to add additional classrooms, to add additional capacity at your school sites. You can use this funding district-wide, but again, this is a 50-50 share with the state. So in order to submit an application to request that $950,000 from the state, you also need a district matching amount of $950,000. Looking ahead, or looking back a little bit, I talked about this a little bit in December. You know, the statewide school bond failed to pass, unfortunately. That lovely Prop 13 back in 2020, which is how the SFP program is traditionally funded, is through those statewide school bonds. Given that the failure passage, the legislature and the governor decided to annually make allocations from the general fund into the statewide school facility program to keep these applications funded as they stack up in line. So over the years from 2020 23, 24, each fiscal year, there's been an apportionment. And I will say, just as of today, I do have some updated numbers that due to the expected bond that will be on the ballot in November for what could be potentially anywhere from $5 billion to $14 billion. Because of that, and because there is a statewide shortfall expected in the budget, that the governor has reduced the $875 million general fund allocation for the 24-25 school year by $500 million. So there still is a $375 million general fund allocation that will be coming to the SFP, but as of today, it's a little bit less than that, $875 million. So that's what we're looking at, going forward. That statewide school facility program will continue to be funded. It has been funded. There's been a consistency in funding since 1998 when this program began. There's been either statewide school facility bonds have been on the ballot and passed throughout the last 26 years, or it's been subsidized by the general fund to make sure that these applications continue to be funded for school districts all over the state. So given that, just to circle back really quick, a lot of the people in our industry talk about statewide or school facilities funding as a three-legged stool. And like Trent said, it's very rare that you walk into a district and the funding opportunities outweigh the need. So you really need this three-legged stool in order to even get close to adequately funding the needs of your facilities at your district. So your developer fees are the first leg of that stool, collecting the maximum level developer fees, which you are. your local funding, which are your general obligation bonds, parcel taxes, things that come from your local area, and then that funding that's available from the state and the federal government. And the largest part of that for your district and for most districts across the state is that state school facility program. So that's that three-legged stool that's really necessary in order to even get close to adequately funding your facilities needs. And on that note, I will hand it back over to Trent.
Thank you. So when we want to start to talk about this, I think we should pause and look back again, like we said, to December when we started to really lay out this idea of how are we going to take a evaluation of our need and how we're going to prioritize that. We've done a lot of good work, right? We've received a lot of great feedback and guidance from the board, and with the staff, we've been able to do a whole lot, right? We have this project planning matrix. We need to finalize that, and then we need to roll that into, right, as we move from a master planning stage into an implementation plan, right? We know our need. We've done a good job proactively planning it based on matrices that we can fall back on to quantify those needs. The next step is to identify projects that we want to start looking to implement, right? And in order to do that, we need to go back through and start to look at how we want to look at that local funding apportionment, right? So what we'd like to do is make sure we have balanced budgets that maximize those state dollars, but as April said, we do need a local match for that, so we'll have to balance that with the monies that we have or other monies that we'd go look for to generate an implementation plan, right? That would be to do the projects on the list in the orders that's determined by the board based on that information that we had, because then we can then give direction to both the construction managers and the district staff to execute those projects, to continue to move forward proactively to address the facility needs. Right? So as we take this database, again, we can come back and do workshops or work with Dr. Vang to roll out whatever information you need. We can tie it to funding models as well. And then you just want to work to proactively address those needs. So the sort of next step would just be to continue to work proactively with the Greystone West crew and King to address those future needs as they move forward. I think we're going to pause here to answer any questions. Oops, I went one too far. And we'll leave that there. But thank you for all of the work you've done. We've covered a ton of ground in 4 months, and we would not have been able to do that with both the support of the board and the district. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, questions? I had one clarifying question, if I could just jump in. On the new construction, where you said it was a 50-50, that was just solely for classroom construction?
So the new construction program is primarily intended to add capacity, so to add additional classroom. It can also be used to fund undersized ancillary facilities, so undersized multi-use rooms or sometimes administrative spaces, libraries, that kind of thing.
Okay,
also.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I actually had a question about that. So the $943K for the base grant, is that as high as the grant will go, or is that for each individual project that we choose to do for new construction at each site? I'm a little confused.
So that's what you have available district-wide.
The 943K.
Yes.
That's the total.
Yeah.
But we do have to match that.
You do have to match that. New construction is a little bit different than modernization. Modernization eligibility is broken out by school site, and it's based on the age of each school building, each building in that facility, against your enrollments. Whereas new construction looks at your district-wide enrollment and all of your available capacity throughout your district.
So with that in mind, I'm thinking about the new construction. Which projects would be eligible for that on our list? Like what types of projects?
Under this list, I think the majority of what we have on this list currently is modernization. But if you are doing additions, so if you are if you have a project where you might be creating additional square footage somewhere, may not necessarily be entirely new classrooms, but that could potentially, depending on the scope of the project, could fall under new construction. I think most of it's modernization, deferred.
Yeah, I think when we started to look at the database, we created the idea was to cast a net around the deferred maintenance needs and sort of the maintenance needs of the district as well. So there's not a lot of new construction opportunity on that list. That would fall back to your modernization eligibility, which, as April was saying, will come due at time, but that's site specific.
I just have a question. How is inflation, future cost materials, and services factored into the program?
Into the statewide school facility program? Every year that's an excellent question. So every year in January, the state allocation board reviews what's called, or the Office of Public School Construction, who administers the school facility program, looks at a study called the RS Means, and it looks at construction costs across the nation, but specifically the Office of Public School Construction looks at average construction costs for labor, materials, equipment in I think it's a half a dozen major cities in California, and then they come up with what's called the per pupil grant amount. And so those big numbers of modernization are really based on a pupil count multiplied by that pupil grant. And that pupil grant is usually raised or lowered every year in January, depending on the results of that RS Means study.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one more thing? Being a participant in the subcommittee for business operations, Trent, thank you so much for taking the time to go through this presentation step by step. And I just want it to be known for our stakeholders is that when we see that total estimated cost of $83 million, I want to remind our stakeholders that doesn't mean that's something we need to do immediately, that we've put ourselves into a position where we have, we're $83 million in the hole right now, and this is a big issue. These are things that we've decided can go on a list, and there are priorities. And by looking at those priorities, we understand what is closest to needing it done now and what can be done in 5 years from now. And I appreciate how you said, even if we were to take care of all of this maintenance, all of these needs, there's always going to be something on the list to add to this. I mean,
Yeah, and I think that was our goal when we came down, is to really forward look, within now to like the next 10 years, right? And so we want to cast a broad net. We want to be very, very aware of what we're moving into, with an understanding that, yes, if you were to go to the bank and get a loan for $84 million, the next year something would come up. So we want to just be proactive and always have a really good lens into what's coming, so that we can be proactive instead of reactive.
And then I think Dr. Vang for part of the next steps on this. Do we intend? I know that hold on. Let me try this again. An opportunity to have a board workshop around funding, but are we going to reconvene again to talk about prioritizing the priority list?
Yes. So as you heard Trent mention earlier, that document is a living, breathing document. The executive cabinet, I have actually had a chance to go through that list, and the column that says district prioritization, we've gone through it. We've prioritized yes, no for each of the projects. However, you as trustees, as the board, you haven't had an opportunity to do that. So that's actually next on my list, is to get your input and to have you help prioritize what are the board's priority projects here. So that is part of our next step, in addition to looking at funding. Once we prioritize it, the funding source.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions, trustees? No? Okay, thank you for being here as always. And for the smiling faces with that presentation as well. That's not lost on us, so thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to item 9, which is the consent agenda. Excuse me. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, this item will be considered under discussion and action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions or requests to pull anything from this item? No? Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we're going to move on to communications, and item 10A is a new item to the agenda called the Board President's Report. And tonight, what I just want to touch on briefly is to let you know and to let our stakeholders know that as we move forward, we're going to have a change of leadership. That is common knowledge at this point. So as the board, what we did when our former superintendent retired and going into new leadership, the board will get together to discuss next steps. All communication will live on a website as well. All of our community stakeholders will be updated via email, Parent Square, whatever kind of methods, but we're going to follow the same transparent format that we did the last time. Whether, and when there's forums, if there's surveys, whatever the case may be that goes out to our stakeholders, that will be, what's the word I'm looking for, marketed or sent out, pushed out to all our families. At this point, Mr. Aurelio is with us through the end of June, so we're moving forward until the end of the school year. So there's nothing coming up between now and then, but anything that comes up that the board starts to move forward with will be transparent and will be promoted. Okay? All right, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item 10B, board members report. That's going to be Trustee Mora, please.
Thank you. I'll try to smile and I won't sing either. I'm going to have to pull it up on my computer because I'm not going to, no, it's okay. I'm not going to turn around and look. So I am presenting on my adopted school, St. Helena Elementary School. Go Dragons. I wanted to take a little bit of a spotlight on the process behind our success in literacy achievement. So I think everyone here has had a student go through the elementary school. So if you haven't in the audience, now you get your little crash course. Basically, the students come in 3 times a year. They're assessed on a Lexile. So they take a tool called reading inventory is used. Output is a Lexile. So let's say it's 500. Oh, sorry. Smile, sing. Yes, 3 times a year, getting a Lexile is the output. And the students work with their teacher, come up with a goal. So this is where you are, where would you like to be at the end of the year, and then set targets throughout the year. I think what I most appreciate is I always try to relate what they're learning to real world. So the students starting, I don't know if this happens at the primary, so you can tell me yes, but they're learning to set goals, right? So I can't even think of what age a 3rd grader is now. It's been so long. But what is my goal? What are my targets? How am I going to get there? And then learning that they have to pay attention to those goals. And am I there yet? Or what do I need to do? Oh, I passed my goal. So the growth is celebrated in, I think it's a monthly celebration, and the students are recognized. Their names are called out. We can still do that in our small schools, which is an amazing thing. Anyway, so, we as a board and a district, we set goals. We monitor our progress against goals. The kids are learning that with their reading achievement, and they see successes. Because no presentation is, complete without data. Next slide, please. Got to have the data, right? But I'm not going to talk about the data. I'm just going to explain the data and show you what they're looking at. So on the left, so the dark green, I just need to make sure the color looks the same. Basically, what they're taking a look at is, so the left is fall. The 3 columns are fall 2023 Lexiles, and then the one on the right is the winter. And they're broken up into the categories across the school of students that are far below their Lexile where they should be, below the Lexile they should be, and then the larger group is met or above. So, and what basically I want this group to see is that we are tracking, monitoring it through the year, and ideally you want to see the darker green colors go away. We want them to be 0 and everyone to be met or exceeded. And then the next Lexile will be in May. So that'll be the final one for the year before they take state testing. Next data slide. So this one is also, not only are they tracking the progress, but they're looking at it by grade level. So rest assured, they are drilling down. And again, you want to see the percentage, or this is just showing the fall and winter growth between the same students at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it's as as the principals showed, that it's really common for the third graders to have that really big jump, so don't be alarmed that the fourth and fifth don't grow as much, but we are seeing growth by grade over time, and that's what we like to see, and I appreciate knowing that it's being monitored, tracked, and action being taken by student. And that is it.
Thank you. Did you create those data slides yourself?
I did not. Those are not my product.
Thank you so much. That's great for sharing that with us and go Dragons. That's great. Yeah. Trustees, any questions for Trustee Mora? Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to item 10C, which is the superintendent's report. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Well, good evening, President Pelosi, Vice President Simon, trustees, staff, community, those watching us on TV and YouTube, and everyone out there. So, as we all know, this is the first time we've been in public since the announcement that I would be leaving at the end of the school year. And I really wanted to just take this opportunity to both thank the board. I know you aren't the original 5 who hired me. So if Julio Olguin is out there listening and Trustee Haig is out there listening, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and serve in probably one of the most amazing districts I could ever be a part of. This district is in great hands with some really dedicated educators, obviously fantastic students and families. Just to close the loop, I did accept a position, and that was made public yesterday at a board meeting. I will be the new superintendent of Vallejo City Unified School District. It's come July 1. Thank you. So different kinds of challenges, new challenges ahead. So this report's pretty brief. We were obviously on a spring break over the span of time. This was our first full week back. Well, not even a full week back. It feels like a full week. But we did hit the ground running. We are entering testing season as we prepare all our students both for the summative assessments. That's your CASP, 2 A's, 2 P's, for ELA, math, and science, and I listed the grades, so we are aware of which grade levels are testing as well. Our English learners, they're doing their summative LPAC, that's to test their literacy level in English, and of course our high schoolers are also preparing for AP tests. So big crunch time for our students as they come back from the break. They really have to focus and get going, so we want to remind our families attendance is important. Let's get our kids to school every day if we can. This is also the season of celebrations. You'll start to see a lot of things popping up on calendars, different organizations that will be doing both fundraising events and hosting our students and student projects. And so I just listed a few there so you can see. I do want to point out and give a big shout out to the Public Schools Foundation, the Give Big campaign. I believe they got to about 80% of their goal. I think Coco's out there. Is that right? 90. Okay. Regardless, it's great. And, you know, and like I said, that's just this community giving to support our students. And that's a fantastic thing to see. So keep an eye on the master calendar, updates from schools. There are a lot of different events that will be coming up. And of course, as trustees, you're almost always invited to every single one. I know it's hard to get to everything. So we will make sure we spread that around so you can at least attend the things you can. And then just some of the important dates coming up, I wanted to highlight. We have a fashion show. I think this is our first coming up next week. We have our district ELAC. There's the Rib Feed, the El Niño event, achievement awards for CTE, and the Fajita Fest, just to name a few. And I'm sure I've missed many because we do a lot of great things around here. And that's the report this evening.
Thank you. Is the Napa County Achievement Awards, is that down in Napa, do you know?
I believe it is, and I will send information.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Is the fashion show RLS? Is that the students have all been working on, though that it's the RLS students?
It's a combined RLS
okay.
and high school.
Great, cool.
Is it at the PAC?
Yes.
At the PAC, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
And a little plug, because my daughter's in it. They're all original designs sewed and created by the students.
Okay.
The theme is avant-garde.
Okay.
Avant-garde.
And what time does that start? Do you
I
happen to know?
believe 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 o'clock. Great.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aurelio. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to the superintendent subcommittee report. So you're up again.
I am. And for the report this evening, we have three, I believe, three committees to report on. Let me click ahead. We had an LCAP steering committee meeting. We were essentially wrapping up the discipline committee, and then we had the business operations committee. So beginning with the LCAP steering committee, Trustee Moore and Trustee Simon were in attendance. You can see there listed in the highlights, we discussed the process and timeline for the upcoming new LCAP. We know we're rewriting a new 3-year plan. We also heard recommendations around the feedback surveys for students, staff, and parents before that went out. And then we gathered more feedback from the committee around Goal 1, current Goal 1, not new Goal 1. And Trustee Simon or Trustee Mora, any additional items you want to add to that committee?
I have spring break brain, so no.
You're not obligated
I was just
to.
trying to think if I missed anything, but
No. And as always, and there's a QR code linked to materials, so people can always look at those.
Providing that.
Okay. Moving on to the discipline committee, President Pelosi, you were there, Trustee Mora, and we spent our time focused on really finalizing the recommendation around our board policy 5127, which is associated with graduation and promotion, and the associated administrative regulation 5127, which needed a lot of work. It was very brief the way it was originally written. So we received recommendations. That policy and administrative regulation will go to the board policy committee next, which I believe is next week. And then that would be coming, based on that, will come back to the board in May. We also reviewed both the high school and the middle school, their communication that they were going to be sending out in anticipation of the graduation and promotion activities that are coming up. Anything either one of you would like to add?
Nothing for me to add. No, thank you.
I don't remember if we said this last time, but the biggest change, I think, for parents that they're going to see is that they're going to have to sign something. So it's,
yes,
you should read it. We always say read things before you sign it, but it really is an acknowledgement that a policy that has been in place, but we want to make sure that people know it, because just because you send something out doesn't mean people read it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Business Operations Committee met on March 27th. I know that was referenced a little earlier. We had Trent was there, as well as Gopal, Trustee Simon, and Trustee Wolf. You were there in attendance. We did review the updated facilities projects list, the $83 million list, very thoroughly. And additionally, we learned about the natural gas supplier and how we're potentially shifting to a new gas supplier by the end of this school year. And we also provided feedback on solar panel locations. That was a topic of discussion as well. And Trustee Simon or Trustee Wolf, anything you want to add?
I would say I think it was really helpful having all the different players, especially some of the teachers, because as Gopal was there, this looks like a good place, and some input. You wouldn't think about baseballs landing on it or the different effects. So I think having such a variety of people in there is really a great idea. And Dr. Fang gave us such happy news, as always. But it's a good mix of people that have really good insight.
And noting there is another one coming up at the end of May. And just some upcoming meetings. We do have board policy coming up on Monday on tax day. Interesting, tax day. Okay. And then we have our final student equity and belonging committee meeting on the 24th. There's a Monrovia meeting on the 9th. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to, we have item E, which is the St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. I do believe, there he is. I thought I saw him. Mr. Lusseldorf, please.
Good evening, trustees. First off, I want to congratulate Carolyn. She's both, if you've never had her in a classroom, she's a rock star in the classroom. She's a rock star out here. So you guys have been very fortunate. So as I have been having her as a student. So I wanted to mention just briefly we've got some changes in leadership coming, and I would just like the board to be mindful of some progress that we're making of programs that are kind of in their infancy, and it would be, I think, problematic or challenging for the teachers to see a big direction change on things like PLC development, BTC, and I think also right now we have some really good relationships at the site administrator level at all 4 sites. It's probably the most peaceful I've ever seen it in my tenure at this school district. So the hires that we have and the relationships that we have there are all real positive at all 4 sites. And I would like to see that continue. So I would like for the board members, when they go in their search or however they go about it, to be mindful of those things that we've just started and those relationships that we have at the sites. Those are all on a positive footing right now. So there's not radical changes needed there. And again, we've started a bunch of new programs, and I think teachers get frustrated if all of a sudden we start something and then we change directions again, especially when things are in their infancy. So just hopefully we're mindful of that and just going forward and looking at that. So that's all I wanted to put in there for right now. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
Trustees? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for being here as always. We have a written report for item F, which is the CSEA board report. So that was written. And then items G, H, and I are principal reports to the board. Those are also written reports for us. As always, principals, thank you very much for providing it. All the information. Mr. Ryan, thank you for all the links to the newsletters as well, because if you really don't have a child in any of those schools, you don't normally look at those links. So thanks for providing those as well. Okay. So we'll move on now to item 11, which is student learning and achievement. We're going to go with item A, which is the report on the local control accountability plan. So that's Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, and it's good evening, trustees. It's a report on the survey aforementioned from the LCAP steering committee in March. So I'd like to go through and share some of the results this evening. So as a part of our 3-year local control accountability plan development, the California Department of Education asked that districts engage and solicit input from our educational partners. So we developed this survey and sent it to those educational partners who are our staff, our students, and our parents to reach every person in the district. And the board is aware that in other years outside of the 3-year plan development, we solicit opinions and input from our partners in different ways. In the second year, usually we have a site-based activity where the sites kind of collect the information around some prompts. And you will recall last year we had a district-wide event held here in the boardroom where we engage our community partners in a larger conversation. So that's our methods of collecting feedback and input as we move along during the 3-year plan process. So we compiled the survey data, and the response overall wasn't great, but surveys typically don't get a lot of success, and successful in a survey administration is somewhere between 20 and 30%, and we were on probably the lower end of that, which means not all voices are represented in these responses, but we do have what we have. And so I selected enough slides that I think are relevant to share from each group as part of the process. So if we jump ahead, so our staff responses overall, felt good about student supports and progress being made in instruction and especially in school climate. You could see the breakdown here by site, and of course the high school has more staff members than other sites, but if you think in our district we have roughly 180 staff members overall, and we had 49 responses, that's about 25% roughly off the top of my head, so decent, but not representative of everybody in the staff. If you advance the slides, this shows right here the responses that I mentioned, that staff overall feel good about our academic achievement. The The questions are listed in the items there because I know they are cut off based off of the program that we used, but you can see what the questions are that students or our staff felt that students are making good progress. And on the last slide there within the staff component, do we create a welcoming and safe environment? And you can see in blue and orange that overall our staff feel that way. So good responses overall from our staff that did take the survey. And so moving on to the next slide, we're talking about our family and community engagement. We had a really good balance in responses from sites overall, but 158 total. It's hard to estimate how many parents we reach with multiple families and so on, so that percentage is unknown. But 158 responses. I think in the past we've had somewhere between 250 and 300 responses. So this is down for whatever reason. So if you go to the next slide, we did make an attempt to solicit from our unduplicated families. So we would make an effort for to kind of break out the categories that the LCAP really wants to focus and address our additional unduplicated funding on, and so we have those categories right there. And then the last slide shows, that's the home language, so it shows a little bit, a large percentage were responses in English, and so roughly less than 20% were in Spanish. But overall, I think the survey data here does show a positive trend with families, overall satisfaction with opportunities and with information sharing. And I think if those that have been on the board for a while recall that in previous LCAP surveys, the distribution of information to families always kind of came up as one of our top 3 areas that people didn't feel like they had enough information or knew when events were. And I don't necessarily know if this is attributed to Parent Square, but that does not seem to be a major theme this year. So that feels good that we finally have that area at least not in our top 3 of things that we need to focus on, and maybe Parent Square and maybe some of the outreach that we are doing in different manners is quelling some of those concerns. So that's good to see. And if we just take a look here at the themes, so again, with low response totals, none of these themes really had more than 4 or 5. So when I put major themes, I want to caution that that's not an overriding sentiment, but these were the things that were listed in there. And I think, these are relevant for district leadership and site administration to review and respond to, and that's some of our work that we're going to do in our collective meeting tomorrow. But there's concern about engagement with students who perform above grade level. There's a strong desire, probably I would say the most common or most frequent response was more teacher to parent communication. And that's not just when students aren't performing, at grade level or, at standard, but just more communication about how's my student doing in your class, and just more contact and feeling like there's a direct connection there. And so, I believe that with the use of two-way communication on Parent Square, I think that's something that we can achieve within the LCAP. So I'm already moving ahead, and I shouldn't do that. Okay, so then the third one is concerns about cell phone usage during class time, and that's something that was brought up earlier from some parent concerns, I believe, in the fall. So that's something we're going to take a look at tomorrow as well. Okay. All right, student responses, a good array from 6 through 12. Surprisingly, 6th grade had the most responses. So that's really great that they took the time to show an interest in providing this feedback for us. But again, 87 total students, and we know that we have 1,150. So, should have been better, but here we are. And so if you go to the next slide, overall, if we start looking at the extra support, and overall their satisfaction is very high with the school experience. They feel like there's extra support when needed. One of the things that I want to unpack with leadership is is neither agree or disagree. That might mean I don't know. And so, what does that mean when students take this survey is I might not know if I need extra support, or if I've never had it, I can't feel neutral about it. Maybe it's just I've never used it, or so I want to unpack that a little bit. And so I'll be coming by with leadership to kind of talk about these slides a little bit more. On the next slide, I feel connected and engaged with other students, and I think that's a really strong and positive response, that our students have that feeling of belonging and welcoming that we want to promote at our schools. For me, really seeing strongly disagree so low is the best part. I can live with agree and strongly disagree, but if there were a stronger or a larger bar on either one of those strongly disagree or disagree, I would have more concerns. So I feel really good about this response. The next one is my voice is heard and valued at school. Again, this is one of those questions that might be, with neither agree or disagree. It might be an I don't know, because I haven't had to, voice my concerns because I've been happy with things. So again, that one might need a little more unpacking. But generally overall, the agree and strongly agree are favorable in that. But, again, disagree, there's a percentage there that I think needs to be recognized. My family is informed about activities and events. I kind of correlated these questions to be similar to one another as much as possible, given the fact that student responses were going to be different than parents on this. But also students too, if they know that their parents show up to events, or if they know that they're going to things, that they would have a sense that their family knows what's going on at their schools as well. So I'm happy to see that that is favorable as a response as well. The opportunities that students have at school, I just think it's interesting, all the different things that we offer, and it's just amazing. And we know that student success is predicated on their connectiveness to their schools, and a big connectiveness to the school is the activities or extracurriculars that you're involved in at your schools. And you can see, most of our students participate in sports, but visual and performing arts, clubs, FFA is huge, and then school or district committees. There's ways for students to be involved, and we want to keep promoting that. However, on the next slide, one of the things that we've talked about a lot are what are the barriers for students to participating in these activities, because if we want to promote that connectiveness to our schools and our activities that are related to our schools, scheduling conflicts, what conflicts with students, what is those reasons that do they have to work, and then the yellow bar there is of concern for us for a number of years is transportation is not available, because we know some of our students that are traveling to the furthest destinations of our boundaries, some would not have bus transportation that late in the day to maybe stay after school. And so again, those are some of the things that we need to look at and unpack and talk about. And the not interested bar too. What is there something that we're missing that students have an interest in that we could offer that we haven't heard about? So again, those are things that, again, I mentioned we're going to discuss a little bit further as a district and site leadership tomorrow. So, just as I reflect on the data, while I wasn't, I was hoping for more feedback. Generally, I felt good about the positive responses. There's always nuggets and things that people include in the comments, and I think there's a real value in reading those and understanding those for us to see and learn from, because sometimes we think we're doing a great job, but there's some other people out there that are dissatisfied, and we have to take a look at our practices and how we're doing things and evaluate, should we continue or should we move in a different direction. So again, the administration will see this information and kind of our draft work in the LCAP, and I look forward to presenting that to the board in May, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, questions?
Yes, I do. Sorry. All right, we'll start with slide 3. Actually, it was the staff responses, and you kind of answered it, and I was happy that Mr. L went first, talking about the level of happiness and I guess, positive peacefulness, because I was worried with the lack of participation from staff, and it makes me wonder, is there apathy? Are they unhappy, or are they happy and they don't feel they need to fill it out? So it alarmed me. I feel better. Thank you, Mr. L. But I guess I still just leaves me wondering if our own staff is not responding. I guess, is that like a 30% response rate? So it's not that much higher than student or parents.
No.
And then, sorry, my stickies, slide 6. So the parent, family and community engagement. So there was 158 parents that responded. And then if we went to slide 9, which was the question about, do you feel engaged with the community? We only had 49 of 158 people answer it. So then I was kind of like, did we lose them? Like, this is a question about family engagement. Yeah. If they feel engaged, they started the survey and then they didn't answer it. So it kind of made me wonder. And I know we've talked about how do we encourage feedback for as long as I've been sitting and watching board meetings, which is about 6 years. And I don't have any answers, but I do remember we had in, I think it was an LCAP subcommittee, there is a parent, I think she still lives in the district, that does surveys for a living. I think that's her job at UC Davis. And I was just wondering if it might be time to say, like, get some advice. Is there a better way to be getting it? We're a small district. Do we do something different than a survey and an email and a text? I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I don't want to assume that people are happy when I don't have a good response rate. Because like you said, this is not statistically enough people responding to do something with. I mean, it's good data, but you wouldn't be allowed to use it in a study, a data study, I guess. So those are just my ideas going through it. But I appreciated having it. I like the consistency just from a format perspective across the 3 groups so that we can kind of see if there are any trends across those areas. I like the student voice, but there weren't any comments from the students, apparently. Shocking. And I just would love to hear some of the unpacking of what's next and what we can be doing to help with goals and actions that are going to hopefully help in some of the areas where there were concerns. I'm done.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the report. And I was thinking that since 2/3 of the people we reach out to, staff and students, is there a way, I know we can't force anyone to take the survey, but is there a way we can carve out some time during the school day to make it possible for more students and more staff to consider the survey?
I'd have to think about that and discuss that with the principals.
No need to answer now, but just some more thinking to do on how to increase participation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Heller, I was curious on the student survey, obviously we're probably not having TK through 2 fill that out.
No, sixth grade.
So it was just 6th through 12th.
Sixth grade,
so
yeah.
That's when you said, out of 1,100 students, it's not really.
You're right.
1,100 students that we're looking for survey responses from.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you for.
Sure.
No, it's good clarification because it's more like 600 and 700.
Okay. All right. Coco, we already had public comment. Sorry. Okay. Yes, I'm good. Yes. Yeah.
I was just going to echo Trustee Mora and Trustee Simon's concerns because the student participation was very low. So if you need any help advertising, we have a whole leadership class that can take time to take the survey, bring it into Student Congress, take it to other student leadership sites. I know that the RLS is going to have a complete full year RLS class. So taking it in those types of classes, maybe we'll get a better spread and then we can do more advertising from there. We just need to know, like when the survey's going out, and we can help you with all of that for the student perspective.
You can put that in the handbook you're leaving for us. That's a great idea. Thank you. Anybody else for Mr. Heller? Questions for Mr. Heller? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Heller.
Thank you.
We move on to 11B, which is the Professional Learning Community Progress Report for 2023-2024. 4, Mr. Aurelio, please.
Good evening, everyone. So I am going to ask the principals to come closer to the microphones because they will be co-presenting. And we're on the last slide. Thank you, Erica. Keep going back. Perfect. So tonight's professional learning community report is an opportunity for the governing board to hear directly from our school administrators as well as district staff on how we are supporting the implementation of PLCs at each of the 4 schools. We did have a special study session with our consultant recently where you heard you received a book, which I see right there, and also heard from the consultant who had been working with our 4 schools. Unfortunately, we ran out of time and really didn't get a chance to hear from our administrators. So this is an opportunity for us to sort of continue from there and provide you some context on the work that's been done this year at each of the 4 schools. As a reminder, what you see on the screen are sort of the 4 big questions that really guide and lead us through the PLC process. Question number 1 and question number 2 is probably the crux of what we do in planning, collaborating. Our teachers, when they're meeting together, they're really trying to answer these 2 very significant questions. What do we want students to learn? And that's where we do our development for our essential standards. We all know that each grade level has a long list of standards. And yes, we do teach most, if not all, standards, but there are some key essential standards that are really vital to the success of our students as they progress from grade to grade. And that is some of the work that our sites are doing in their collaborative nature. In addition to that, they have to decide how you're going to assess the progress of our students. And I'm glad that Trustee Morrow was able to share some of the data from the elementary school, the reading inventory. Those are some of the examples they use, but there are common formative assessments that the teachers are developing to assess those essential skills and standards. And then that leads to the 3rd and 4th question, which is when we teach it, are the students learning? If they are, great, then how do we extend their learning? And if they're not, how are we supporting that learning through response to intervention, through the MTSS program? So there's a lot of work and really how we do business, and that is the shift we're trying to make as a district. I'm really glad to hear from the union that that is something that they want to continue, that it's not necessarily driven by the superintendent, but it is supported by the superintendent. And so your task when you find your next superintendent is to make sure they're ready to take that on as well and support our site leaders. So I am going to turn it over. We're going to do a bit of a spotlight. Each of the administrators has 2 slides they're going to speak to. One, kind of an update on how it went this year, and also successes and next steps. So we're going to start from the bottom at the primary and work our way up.
Okay, good evening, everyone. At the primary school, our grade level professional learning teams, PLTs, our school is a professional learning community. Our grade level teams are professional learning teams. They meet weekly for 80 minutes. Our MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support team, which is another facet of PLCs, meets every week. And we have curricular teams that meet once a month. And those are a representative from each grade level, K2, and there's a math team, English language development, English language arts, reading comprehension, and literacy. So they meet once a month to make sure that we are vertically aligned as a K2 team. We identified 2 goals for our guiding coalition, which is our instructional leadership team, identified 2 goals this year that we really wanted to focus on with our staff during our staff meetings and during our support and training that we provided for staff. And one of them was a carryover, which had to do with our GLAD strategies, and this other one was about making sure that our grade level teams really spent time during those 80-minute PLTs talking about which instructional practices proved to be the most successful and commit to using them as a team. So we continue to revisit this goal during our staff meetings. That was something that we saw was lacking in our teams, that we had what can be referred to as DRIP syndrome. Now I'm going to forget what that acronym is, but it has to do with having a lot of data, but you're not talking about how to address the data. So I'll think of it after I'm done. But basically, we knew that we needed to take the time to pause and look at the data and actually, if there's 4 teachers in a grade level, like look at one teacher's data and go, well, how did your students score, this on this particular math essential standard? Mine didn't. How are you teaching that? So that was a goal that we've been working on this year. Data rich, information poor. That's what DRIP is. Sorry, it came to me. So we have submitted our application to be a promising school through Solution Tree, which is also referred to as a model PLC school. It was a rigorous application. It came back to me 2 times and I made edits, and we're anxiously awaiting the status of that application. We hope that was a suggestion by one of the consultants last year that we also all work with in the CAPS network. Dr. Cruz encouraged us to apply for that. So that's something that we're waiting to hear back about. And our teachers have been encouraged to have a 2-year, the commitment on Guiding Coalition is 2 years. And then we encourage those members to step down if there are other grade level members that want to join, because we really want to build that capacity. So there's a few people who have been on the team for 2 years, and so we'll be starting the process of who might be ready to come in. It's not an obligation or mandatory that someone has to step down, but we do want to build capacity. And then we will be, in the next month, we'll be seeking feedback from our staff to determine our goals for the next school year in terms of what is it that the staff really needs the most support with in regards to professional learning teams. And sadly, we have graduated from the CAPS network, which is the training that we go to receive all of this information, because we have, those of us in that cohort have been in it for 7 years and they want to start new cohorts. So we will be graduating and we'll be discussing how to support our team in achieving our goals internally, since we won't have that guidance from the CAPS network. Even if we get model PLC status, we still want to be learning and growing. So we need to figure out how can we do that if we're not going 6 times a year to that, to those meetings.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. I think what you'll notice as we go up the grades is you're going to see the different levels of I don't know if I want to say proficiency, but the different levels that we're at in the implementation of PLCs at our sites. And so obviously the ones that are applying for model PLC are at the very top of that, and they have pretty much all of their systems and all of the parts in place. We are running a close second to them. We're really trying to keep up there. And so a lot of our structures are the same as the primary school. We also have the 80 minutes for PLC grade level meetings. This particular year, we chose, our instructional leadership team and I chose to have all of our PLC meeting times in the same room, even though there's 3 different teams, PLTs, working together within their teams at their tables, but we're working on the same standard that is seen in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and then 5th grade, so we can see how it actually grows up through the grades. And we are able to work in our PLTs and then come together as a whole school, share out, ask questions, add to each other's work, and make sure that it is a smooth transition. So this year, we really focused on doing that for one particular standard that is probably one of the most heavy hitters, which is identifying main idea and supporting details. One of those standards that's going to carry on for the life of education, right? Anyone that is going to school for their entire time. So that's basically where we've been focusing. Next year, we liked this process so much because it really helped build our capacity as teachers and I think our collaborative structures, and it also helped build our colleagues' trust in each other and the work that's happening in the different grade levels. It really kind of opened up practice for us. And so I believe we're going to be doing something very similar next year, but we're going to ratchet up the timing and the number of standards, and so we're really excited about our schedule for next year. And as far as, well, I just covered our next steps. And is there anything I was missing there? We are going to continue to build our collaborative opportunities between the primary school and us. We're one of those schools that sit in the middle, so we need to make sure that we, for next year, figure out a way to include and meet up with the middle school as well. So that's also on our plans. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hopefully one of the other things that you hear as a theme through this, moving from a promise school or a model school right on up through secondary, is this idea that this is a process and it's under constant refinement. I mean, just listening to Rebecca reflect on their practice, even though they're applying for such a prestigious honor, that, and I say that leading into this, that, you know, just today I was meeting with one of our ILT members and we were beginning that conversation about what do we want to focus on next year and do differently, what should our goals be, and it's, you know, she was very excited, and at the same time, we're talking about instruction, we're comparing instructional strategies. But now that we've done it, we want to go back and do what we did this year all over and do it better. You know, so there is this idea that we aren't going to do that exclusively, but there is this idea that you will hear this theme that it's a process and you move forward and then you reflect and you kind of tweak. So this year we redesigned our access period that occurs once a week so that teachers are reviewing data based on common formative assessments and assessments in their class, and then assigning students who need that question number 3 intervention, or students who are meeting that standard, that particular outcome, and receiving enrichment. And then we also have a third tier of that, which is a study hall for students who want to get caught up on work or maybe missed for an athletic event or something like that. The goal this year for RLS that I inherited and that we've supported all the way through is learning progressions for 3 of the essential standards in each department. So that is building out ladders, intervention lessons and activities, extension lessons and activities, and common formative assessments for 3 of the essential standards in each of our core academic areas. I'll make a little side note there that science and history, though they have essential standards, they are doing essential skills that translate from 6th through 7th through 8th grade, as their standards are kind of boxed for each grade level, unlike math that builds on one another. So they're focusing on 3 essential skills that transcend each grade level in history and science. We've been collaborating in departmental PLTs for approximately 2 hours a week. This occurred before me, but it has continued into this year and through this year. And we almost graduated from CAPS, but being a little newer to the game, we are actually have the opportunity to stick around in that CAPS network with our existing ILT. So that group will move forward again. Those 4 teachers and myself will remain as the guiding coalition. And we will be attending CAPS next year. I believe it's at Sonoma County with St. Helena High School, which will be great for our 2 secondary sites. Successes and next steps: continue to tweak and refine the access period, get input right now and begin to grow goals for next year, whether it's going to be 3 additional essential standards, learning progressions unfolded, collaboration time utilized with, we created a landing page for all things PLC, and we need to continue, that's kind of a one-stop shop for all things for our site to use, and so that needs to be cleaned up and maintained. Continue the learning progressions for all existing essential standards. It is a lot of time. It does take a lot of time to do this work properly, so continuing to find protected time to do that work, and then continue CAPS in collaboration with St. Helena High next year.
All right. So the high school, we're actually in a really good place because we're in our infancy. We started this summer, as you see, attending our first summer institute with our ILT team. And why I think I'm pretty fortunate is I get the opportunity to learn from my colleagues. I'll go more into that later. So we've been participating in the CAPS network as well. So our 4 teachers, Mr. Fetters and I, alternate attendance. Obviously, you're well aware of, we had a consultant that we've been meeting with and we continue to communicate with, even though he's off the clock. He's afforded us email and telephone access so we can reach out to him at any time. not going to talk about the bell schedule because that's coming up next. But most importantly, and Mr. Ryan kind of highlighted it, is the whole aspect of it being a process. And I'm going to steal his metaphor. It's a slow cooker, not an Instapot. And we've tried to stick with that because there really is no finish line here. It's ongoing. So this year, we've developed a vision and new mission for our school, and we've been very intentional about that. In terms of our vision, we've made sure that every teacher has shared their vision for their classrooms. We kind of approach this in a building thinking classroom way. And so those teachers shared their vision for their classroom. They shared it with a colleague who then shared it with another partner colleague. They prioritize what their vision for their classroom is, and then we spent time authoring different visions and what resonated with us most. And then we surveyed every single staff member, and we did a thumbs up, sideways, down. And if anybody was sideways or down, we would not move forward, because it's very important to us that everybody's vision be included in our school vision, because we don't want anybody to be left out. It's really important. The work that happens every day at a school, we want to be reflective of every single person on this campus. Same thing with the vision. We used a PLC document called the Cultural Shifts about what education used to be, what education is now, or what it should be now in a professional learning community. And we assessed ourselves as a staff. That was one of our exit tickets. And rather than focus on deficiencies, we focused on our strengths, because a vision is where you want to be. A mission is how you're going to get there, the adult behaviors, the processes, and the procedures. And we wanted to focus on our strengths first. Oftentimes in education, we focus on our deficiencies because that gives us something to fix. And we wanted to highlight our strengths. Go ahead. So successes, some of these are duplicitous, but the whole new ILT structure, again, I think has been beneficial. So working with 4 people, prior we had department chairs, and I had a P department of 2. You don't necessarily need 1 person out of 2 in a department chair structure. So that's worked well. Again, bell schedule, which Mr. Ryan and I are going to talk about it in a bit, vision, mission. Each department has established meeting norms and commitments to one another. And then we've also started to reflect on a document that's linked there, and you don't need to click it. It's called Critical Issues for Team Consideration. That really kind of highlights everything of a PLC. So we've already established a baseline of where our gaps, knowing that we're going to have to take it step by step. Next steps, again, bell schedule, front-loading meeting structures. So as much as this year has been laying the groundwork, next year is really, really important, because we don't want it to devolve. So we have to make sure that our teachers have valuable work to do. And again, this is where I get the benefit. It's funny, Mr. Ryan mentioned a landing page. I was like, oh yeah, I got to do that, because I saw his today, and it's filled with links. But it's, as I've complained to my IL team members already, I already have a mountain of shared Google Docs that I need to condense into one. So I'll be stealing that. Same thing, PLC benchmarks. We're working on a timeline, and what are the structures that we're going to need to have in place next year to make sure we're not being idle with our time, and that we're progressing, and when we need to hit the brakes and when we need to slow down, because it's a long process. The primary school is at year 8, and we are the benefactors of being able to learn from our colleagues.
Thank you, principals. So just to wrap things up, from the district and really from the board perspective, how do we continue to support the work? As you can see, some really quality work that's happening at all 4 sites. So just a couple bullets. We want to consider, how do we continue to support the primary school now that they graduated and won't have access to a CAPS network? Is that something we're able to establish internally? Are we able to partner with other schools or districts that have also graduated, create our own essential version? We need to consider attending the Response to Intervention at Work conference. That's something that comes up in November. Mr. Heller will probably take the lead on that one, to see how many people we can take to that to continue to grow those programs. You're about to, in the next item, hear about the bell schedule and how that could potentially support this work that we're doing at the high school level and at the middle school. And then consider, how do we continue to revamp and revisit the systems of data cycles to show progress both internally and externally for the board as well. And with that, we'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Nothing online? Okay. Trustees, questions?
Yeah, I had, for any of the principals, I had a quick question about how are new teachers who haven't participated in the PLC process supported at schools when they join St. Helena Unified?
Well, thankfully, we don't have a lot of turnover in this district. And I think I might have the newest hire at my school. It was a teacher that came on who hadn't ever done anything related to PLCs. But the systems, how could I answer this? The systems are already so in place at our site with how their meetings are run that they quickly, it's more of just a mindset shift. I think that's the hardest part is just like, it's just such a different way of working with colleagues than people who haven't worked in this way have ever worked before. And so, but the other members of the team, because they've, in every grade level, because they've been doing this for so long, the structures were already in place. And so now we're at a point where they actually take turns facilitating the meetings. They have an agenda template, they have their norms, and they take turns by month. So it's not just the guiding coalition member who's going to the CAPS Networks training, running every meeting. It's really a shared leadership. So I think they just kind of, because we have the agenda and the routine in place of how they do their meetings, that helps a lot. And then they just kind of figure it out. if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. And I'm just thinking out loud that with potential new hires in the future, where will PLC come into play during the interview process?
The other part that I was going to mention is that attending that summer institute in Sacramento that all of us attended, and that one new teacher at my site was also able to attend that. And so that was a kind of eye-opening for her. Sorry, just want to say that.
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
If I could just say something to piggyback on what Rebecca said, as we're going through these processes, we're building things like those norms and those structures and systems and templates even that kind of take the teams through steps. So it really does become just a way of doing business, and part of it is making sure that every voice is heard. And so there is a natural kind of learning process and path, like a roadmap almost, being built as we go. So it actually, for example, all the work that we did on Main Idea, it's there for next year when we start doing Main Idea again, even if we were to mix our teachers up, or, it's there. So.
While I have you up here, I have one question for you. You mentioned that the staff, the different grade levels, sit in the same room during that. How is this because of the early release on Wednesday that they're able to have this effective, fabulous time to collaborate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're taking advantage of that time for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Trustee Salmon, I just want to answer your question. Ms. Rocha actually forwarded me a list of 15 questions that you can use that are all about PLCs, and so I'm going to embed those in future teacher interviews. So not all 15, but a few selected ones to get a sense. And the other thing I wanted to add is that Dr. Amy, when he was here visiting, said, do you know how fortunate you are you don't have a lot of staff turnover to keep the consistency of practice? He goes, most districts have at least 25% turnover, and you're onboarding new people, if not more. And he said, you're just having the consistency of having the same grade levels and departments, the familiarity, the trust that is built. You don't have to onboard a new member. He said, you're going to be able to move this work along faster than most districts. So that was reassuring.
That's great news.
I did. To answer Mr. L's question, I think he's still back there. I was really excited reading this book. It energized me, so I know I'm just one of 5, but I love PLCs already. And we are actually the furthest behind. So you talk about the high school being lowest, we are, because there's a chapter in here for all of us, as we read before, and we have a lot of work to do. So it's not, we are actually the furthest behind. So you're going to have patience with us, I think, and help us along also. But there are things that in here that just really I got excited about this book. People might be getting it for Christmas. There's just the focus on teams. I think that's, for me, the thing that has felt most odd about being on the board is that I'm used to working on teams and collaborate at all levels. And it's very awkward for me to be in a role where I'm not supposed to talk to people. Like, I can only talk to everyone here when we're all together, not talk to other people. So it's hard for me. So I like this idea. I love the alignment of goals, starting at the top, going down, and they flow all around. I love those. Continuous improvement is the word you were looking for, Mr. Ryan. And I like the fact that it talks about we don't hope. Like, we make a plan, we follow the plan, and we monitor the plan, and we see where we are. Every level is planning and monitoring. It's not us. It's not, it's not the principals, the district office. It's everyone, everywhere, all the time. And what really stood out to me is, we're going to succeed as a team, and we have to be a team. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustees? Yeah.
Mine is quick because I don't have any questions. It's not because I know everything about it. By what I guess I'm trying to say is I really enjoy learning about this. So at this time I don't have any questions, but I do really appreciate all of your time, as well as all of your teams and your staff at your sites. You're all doing really good work, and it's for students and also for yourselves, in the sense of where you're working together as a team, as you say, and that's really important. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening as well.
Anything else? Oh. I just would like to say that the one thing that I was kind of in search of after our session with Dr. Amy was, while I appreciated all of this, I kind of left feeling slightly unfulfilled because I wanted to know what was happening here. So you filled that void tonight. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for putting that together, to coming here, because I think we left with a high level, but we wanted to know what was working, what was happening here. So to that point, again, thank you for doing that, because you really did fill in a lot of gaps of information. So keep up the great work, and we look forward to the next update. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing really quickly to just highlight what we've been talking about and what you've been saying, is that at the day that we were here, I think it was the same day that we had the meeting with Dr. Amy, I can't remember, but we shared internally as administrators, we were asked to bring artifacts and share things. And so since then, I've had a teacher from RLS and the high school reach out, like, hey, we were told by, Mr. Cinto and Mr. Ryan that you have this. Can you please send this to us? So just that sharing of these tools, it's already happening. So, and that learning from each other, and that wasn't happening prior to this year. So I just want you to know that.
Appreciate knowing that. Okay, trustees, we're ready to move on then. I think we're going to get through C and D. We're going to take a short break after D, okay? But we're going to move on to items 11C, which is information regarding the St. Helena High School bell schedule modifications for 2024-25. Mr. Heller, are you going to introduce us?
I was going to give you a little background on PLC.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. No. But one of the, through all this work that we have uncovered this year, one of the biggest challenges that was highlighted a little bit by Mr. Cinto is that there really isn't cohesive time for the high school to get together to meet regularly to discuss student outcomes, data, and instructional practices. So through the work with his ILT and in consultation with Mr. Ryan and his ILT, the secondary schools have worked together to develop schedules that would be proposed for the 24-25 school year and hopefully beyond, that would afford that opportunity to be in alignment with their TK partners that do have dedicated time on the PLC work. And I will turn it over to Mr. Cinto to begin the process of sharing that information.
All right, and it's slightly mistitled because RLS is in this mix too.
Yes, exactly. So I apologize.
Mr. Ryan's not up here just for moral support. So, all right. So first, these are the topics that we're covering tonight, and we've provided like a little explanation rather than just the topics themselves to help frame questions you or audience members might have. I mean, obviously you can ask tangential questions, but we wanted to highlight our thinking of those particular topics, our why, our challenges, draft schedule, overall change. And before we go on, I do want to let all of you know that both Mr. Ryan and I have worked pretty extensively. We didn't just dream up this schedule in our office, and I know Mr. Lulsdorf can attest, given the multiple faculty meetings and vertical articulations that he was involved in, that this was a team effort. So again, I can develop schedules all day in my office alone if I want to, but if it doesn't reflect the ambitions and the wants and the needs of our teachers and students, then it's all for naught. So our why. And some of these I'm going to kind of condense, but obviously we've invested pretty heavily in professional learning communities. And the focus for that investment is singular, right? It is, we want to ensure learning at high levels. Every consultant that has come through our district highlights how intelligent and well-versed our teachers are, but unfortunately they've been working in isolation, at least at the high school, in large part because of the way that our schedule works. So having a high-functioning PLC like my colleagues requires contractual time in the day for teachers to do this work. Obviously, we need parity with our TK5. I mean, it's no surprise that the elementary and the primary are further along. They have a structure that supports those goals. We have tried in the past at the high school to make better use of collaboration period, but we can't. We have 40 classes that there's only one of, and only 7 periods of the day. So that tells you how many opportunities there are for conflict. And we design a schedule for our students. And I'm sure Carolyn at one point in time has had Mr. Garrity call her and said, you're going to have to pick between this and this. And we try and minimize that as much as possible because we want our kids to get the classes that they need. And that just can't be done at the high school with so many what are called singletons. Obviously, vertical articulation once a month, it's just not enough to do this amount of work. It can't be done during that time. And most importantly, I would say, is number 6. This is not the only job of teachers, right? This is working with your colleagues on other initiatives, but there's grading, there's lesson planning, there's learning other things for your class. This is just one aspect of what they do, and without having dedicated time, it will impinge on other efforts. And lastly, as much as we've gotten pretty far with teacher efficacy, it hasn't been collective. And I know, as demonstrated by our primary and elementary and RLS, we will get further the more we can work together. I think you're up, Mr. Ryan.
All right. So just to talk, just to speak a little bit to the challenges, or kind of the box that we play in. There are certain parameters that are flexible and there are some that are not. And so these are some of the ones we have to take into consideration when building the schedule and also thinking about how to implement this type of change. So I don't think there's anything up here that's entirely new to anyone, but we do have instructional minute requirements for the state of California. So of course we have to meet those. Between the 2 of our schools, we currently have at least 6 shared teachers. So, we've had conversations, some of you have come by and seen, we do have that time within the day. It does come at a cost because we have all of our electives in the morning. Mr. Cinto then has them all in the afternoon, and there's certain advantages to that. But when you're sharing staff to give the equal opportunities to all students, and particularly when you see these great presentations by kids, you want students to have these, it creates a bit of there is also a barrier when you're sharing these stuff. So. We have different start and end times, which is an impact on transportation, but also an impact on just trying to find time. Again, that kind of touches on the shared staffing as well. And then, of course, we do have a contractual obligation, so anything that's going to affect working conditions does need to be in consult with SHTA, which has transpired thus far. So, and been successful. This is a little close to me. I'm going to bring that down for you. Here you go. Oh, I'm up next? Got it. Okay, my schedule. There we go. All right, so currently, especially for those of you that have students at RLS, you know that our block days this year are Wednesday and Thursday. So the shift in schedule proposed would move our blocks just back. So you'd have block Tuesday, block Wednesday. And that would allow us to have the early release on Wednesday on par with our TK5 schools and teachers, as well as the same for the high school. What you'll notice in there is, our start time doesn't change. Our dismissal time on Wednesday matches, allows us a 52-minute access period as well. And you'll also notice wellness doesn't go anywhere. We still have our 4 minutes of wellness every morning led by our counselor, Sandra Hernandez. Something I should probably start taking advantage of for those 4 minutes in the morning. And then we still have our family group that by name that may change to advisory, but nevertheless, that time is still protected, so it's not lost. But rather than read it to you, see there the minutes and what's instructional, and then the biggest shift would be, aside from the early release, it would also be just our block schedule moving basically up a day. So then Monday, Thursday, and Friday would be our 1 through 7 days. Now. No, I'm still going. All right. These are some of the shifts. We've got our instructional minutes, as you can see, 23, 24, 24, 25 are still over the state minimum. RLS Middle School has a good solid day, so we're good there. Our collaboration minutes, for the time being, actually go up a little bit with this shift. This provides for dedicated ongoing time for that Mr. Cinto spoke to, that consistent, reliable time for PLTs to get together. It doesn't come at the cost of access or family group or wellness. It also provides a greater opportunity to expand the PLT and PLC model to other curricular areas. So one of the areas with that shared staff that we've struggled with is that they don't have that protected time to be together. World languages, physical education, they don't necessarily, as well as our electives. So this allows all staff to have that protected time on Wednesday to get together and do that work. It also still provides K-12 articulation for vertical articulation days. It doesn't do away with those, but there's still the opportunity, as Dr. Emery was mentioning, trying to build some time to articulate with RLS and us to continue to work with the high school, in particular now that we'll be going to the CAPS network together. And it guarantees this planning time going forward, which I probably, of all the things up there, I'd probably underscore that the most, because as St. Helena continues into the future, enrollment fluctuates, as we know, and we've discussed. RLS has that opportunity right now to have that time during the day, but it's finite and it's not going to be there forever. And so the opportunity to protect that time on Wednesday within the contractual day, honoring the teacher's work day, while also being dedicated PLT time to do this work now and continue this process in the future of continual improvement, that really is paramount to what we're trying to accomplish here. And with that, Mr. Cinto, Professor Cinto.
Definitely not a professor. All right. So this is the shift at the high school. So block, just like RLS, because we have shared teachers, moves to Tuesday, Wednesday. Addition of advisory on Tuesday, and then shorter access on Wednesday with a 2:20 release. I'll just kind of let you look at that for a quick minute. And before I came over here, I did a quick little search. I just want to let you know, Calistoga's out at 2:25 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All Napa high schools are out at 2:20 on Wednesdays. Tahoe Truckee, 2:30 every day. That's an interesting one. Beverly Hills, late start Wednesday at 9:20. Laguna Beach out at 2:30 on Friday. And Carmel out at 2:15 on Thursday. So this is not new anywhere in education. I came from an early release Wednesday school prior to my time here at St. Helena. A lot of schools have this across California, so it's not revolutionary by any means. And then lastly, I know there might be some consternation over what is perceived as losing instructional minutes, but we're not losing them. We're trading them for something else. And I think what's most important and what I want to stress is the fact that we're trading these minutes not to do more, but to do better. We're improving our systems, communication, and collaboration with the people that matter most in a child's education, the teachers. They're the ones that are on the front lines working with these kids every day. I don't have that luxury, so it makes sense to put and empower them to make these decisions and coordinate their work, knowing that they're going to be throughout our system, not just at our individual school sites, but through all of our school sites. And I cannot see anything bad coming from this, and I definitely think it's the right time for this to happen.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I was looking, when you were sharing before in the other presentation, so primary school is 80 minutes a week of collaboration, elementary school is 80 minutes a week, and then Principal Ryan, you were saying that currently the teachers are meeting 120 minutes a week? Is that just for PLCs?
That's a good question. I'd have to run some mental math, but yes, that's about, so the teachers, right now we're able to have a schedule such that the grade levels align for a portion of the week, and departments do. And so 50% of that time is their prep time, and the other time they're collaborating either with their grade level team or their what we would call PLT or department. So that's currently the model that's there. It has been there. Yes.
So now that we want to fold in the high school into the PLC work, and I understand that with that means the RLS also has to make changes for the high school to again fold into that. So I see that in both of your schedules, we've got 50 minutes at the high school to devote to PLC, and let's see here at the at the RLS, it'll be, sorry, it doesn't say. We've got access till 1:58.
1:58. So it's actually 60. I believe it's 62.
So you'll have 62 minutes on your campus for.
We typically get out a little earlier than the high school, so that's where that time comes from.
So, could you explain the reasoning behind your 50 minutes and your 62 minutes?
I think it's because you get out longer. And because of the instructional minute requirement. Thank you. They're more. So that's why.
But I don't think I'm.
Do you want to speak to the high school?
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll just go back really quick. So because the high school has 10,800 more instructional minutes, that changes the amount of time. I mean, unless we're keeping people here until 4 o'clock every day, Mr. L. Sound good? No, I'm just kidding. So that's why our time has to be shorter in terms of meeting time. When you think about when the other school sites get out compared to when we get out, we're actually lengthening our day by a minute at the end and starting a minute earlier. Even then, that puts us later. So working with SHTA, 50 minutes was a reasonable trade-off. If you go to, trying to keep things relatively the same, so that difference, that bottom one there, the shifting of the 879 instructional minutes, increasing the 850 meeting time minutes, because currently vertical articulation goes to 330.
And you're confident that 50 minutes will suffice once a week for PLC?
We'll find out.
Find out.
I think, yes. I mean, to me, it's more about frequency. And I know it's, this work, as we've learned from our middle school and other colleagues, doesn't just happen during that time. Obviously, there will be impacts elsewhere, as there's a lot of collective accountability amongst each other in a PLT, because you have to show up prepared. And when does that happen? It's not going to happen during that PLT time. It's going to happen outside of that time. So there's other impacts to a teacher's instructional day that this movement will have an effect on.
So staff is really efficient with their use of time when they come to the PLC meeting with colleagues.
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
First, I want to say I'm very impressed with the logistics, because I'm sure that was quite a project, trying to get everything organized and the timing. I know you want to coordinate a lot, the high school and the RLS. Do you think that would be something like once a month you would use your time to meet, or I know, or is it kind of, we're going to meet high school's going to meet, RLS is going to meet. Does this give you enough time that you can meet transitioning between the two schools?
I would say yeah, and it's funny, I forgot to mention our departments met yesterday, and I wish I would have linked it to show you the mountain of work that they produced during our vertical RT. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look yet, but we took a page, we had our ILTs meet in advance and design what yesterday's vertical articulation would look like. And essentially it was 6-12 in a room, designing the prerequisite skills that you hope kids come into your class with, and what do you guarantee that they're going to leave your class with. And we put together just an empty PowerPoint that they populated, and it is mountainous. It's a ton of work. I mean, and no disrespect, but you should see what PE produced. And that doesn't happen unless you have that time. No disrespect to PE. I chose the wrong credential. But anyway, I mean, I am very confident that, you know, and I think it'll be by need. I mean, I know we already reached out to Mr. Ryan to maybe have an end of the year session with our ILTs because, again, we want to hit the ground running. We're looking at our structures and our templates and other things because we want to be prepared. We don't want to go too fast because, again, there is no finish line in this work. But I anticipate having that protected time where even coaches don't go out to coach their sport because it's during the contractual day, will at least give us the opportunity to plan more for that work.
Okay. Anybody? Oh, yeah.
I just had a couple quick questions for Mr. Ryan. So what do you do during wellness for your 4 minutes? And then how is that different from your family group time?
Good questions. Okay, so wellness is typically led by our counselor. It's 4 minutes. The bell rings, then the tardy bell rings, everybody's in class. And usually what Ms. Hernandez does is she'll either at times use the Calm app, and there'll be a pre-recorded breathing exercise, box breathing or something like that. More often what she does is she has a calming script that she'll read and walk the students through it, and it's like you can hear a pin drop in the front office, except for me clickety-clack, and I need to use the wellness time a little bit better. But you can look out in the classrooms and kids are participating in that. So that's what wellness is, 4 minutes, over and done, and then our president comes on and reads the bulletin and the announcements for the day.
Okay, and I think I actually misspoke. I meant, what would the difference be in the schedule from advisory and family group, and why not combine them?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's really a renaming. So currently what happens in family group is that's kind of our social emotional learning time. So we have a curriculum, second step. We also use that as an opportunity to accomplish some of our AVID goals, which I have some good news on AVID, but now it's not an AVID agenda item, so I'll wait. But we use that time to accomplish some of our AVID goals that students, as an example, student agency over student perceived issues on campus. So we've used that to help develop lessons. Once a month, we typically, family groups are broken into color groups. So there's 6 family groups per color group. So once a month, we'll do a color group rally or a school service project, something like that. Access would really be maybe in name only, and it's kind of on par with what the high school does with what they're launching. Advisory. I said access. I meant advisory. But are you? Now I realize what your question is, though. You're asking me the difference between access and family group.
No, because you're proposing an advisory period, right?
No, I see the confusion. I apologize. The high schools are proposing an advisory period. We may change the name of our family group to advisory.
I see.
And
Yes.
so family
Okay.
group and our access are two different things.
Got it.
Yeah. One's academic driven, one's school culture and
Right.
climate driven. Yeah. Sorry, I think I answered like 3 different questions. Hopefully
I made it
something
more confusing
stuck.
than it had to
Yeah,
be.
just smile
Tell
and
me
nod
about
at me.
Avid.
Don't worry. Okay.
Okay. Trustees, everybody
question,
feeling good? Yep. Okay.
Well, I just know that our teachers work really hard and that they really appreciate the time, and it does not fall blind on the students. So I'm really glad that we're building in time for them to strategize because we reap all of those benefits. So I just
Right.
want to say thank you for spending the time to do all this, and I hope that we follow through.
And there's the student voice in action right there.
You want to stay
Right there.
another year now? You're not going to graduate?
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Okay, we're going to go on to 11D here, which is the St. Helena Unified Mental Health and Wellness Report, Mr. Aurelio, and then we will break after this.
Great. So thank you, President Pelosi. So tonight, the board will get an updated report that shares data and metrics for each of our support providers around health and wellness. I've actually asked Director Miranda to present the bulk of this information, and then I will close at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Director Miranda.
All right. And it wouldn't be health and wellness if I know we've been sitting, and I'm not going to ask you to move or do jumping jacks, but underneath, if you could just move your ankles or just a body part, because I need your brains to just listen and absorb and be able to just learn along with me. So I've had the opportunity to be here in St. Helena and have learned a lot about what resources we offer. And so as I stepped into this role, one of my challenges was just to learn about these organizations. So I had the opportunity to connect with them throughout this year. So we're going to start with the first one, which you received a very in-depth presentation probably a couple of months ago on this. So I'm not going to read the statistics, but Up Valley came to us. I believe that they are our partner that has just the most variety. They provide services for our K-12 system, but also for our families. They have centers here, and I believe there's just a very intimate relationship we've had over the years, and we can pick up that phone and connect, and they are on site, and we can be able to refer our students. But as I continue, one of the things that I want to point out is as we've gone through our presentations today, we have an alignment of things, and so these services here really align with our multi-tier, our MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support. And so that Mirshan has three components: that academic piece that we heard, social, emotional, and the behavior piece. And really this health and wellness really speaks to that emotional and that behavior piece for our students. And here are the statistics. I'm not going to read those to you. You've had those in front of you. You've had the presentation. Really, what I really want to highlight is that we continue to monitor who we're providing services this year. As I've come in new to my role, and also we've had new staff members, one of the things and there'll be some recommendations is just really knowing what we have. I feel like what I wanted to compare is like I feel like we had, a pantry and of all of these pieces, but sometimes some of these services were kind of in the back and I wasn't sure, or some of our staff members weren't sure that we had them. So our numbers are a little lower, and there could be different reasons, but I believe that one of those pieces are just with onboarding new staff members and just knowing what we have access to. Okay, go on to the next one, please. Okay, I wanted to really just give a shout out to Kate Scudero. She is amazing. I met our nurse at our MTSS conference over the summer. I had never met a nurse who was just so involved. And she's really taking the lead on our mobile clinics. And so she's connected with Olay. And through this transition in our staff, she's made sure that they, along with our high school who works with them, have a place to be. Actually, if you were out here today, you kind of saw them parked out. So they are out here once, 2 times a month and provide services really with our Olay Health van. They are supporting and they provide everything from assessment, nutrition counseling, asthma treatment, and the big piece that I heard, especially for our sports, was just those physicals. They were available for our students for that as well. And really this year, if I really were to highlight, is they really were there more for that reproductive health for our students. So that's just kind of the highlight of how they've been accessed. Go ahead and go on to the next slide. Here, and I'm actually in between glasses like many of you here. So the other one was the dental. Thank you. I don't need them to read, but I need them to see. So it was our dental van, and so once again, our dental van also comes to us once a month, if I have it here. And so I do have statistics for that access of students. So we've had 24 students being served as of last year, not as many this year for the students. Let me see, I think I'm talking fast. Here we go. 22 to 25 students seen this month. However, we do have students that actually go to Napa and get some additional service for those students as well. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. So news, and I really wanted to highlight because the acronym speaks to it, is Nurturing Empowerment, Worth, and Safety. And so this organization really serves to provide services of domestic violence, support around domestic violence and sexual assault. So we haven't had really connections or referrals, and that could be for a variety of reasons as well. And as we move into that, we have had in 22, so when I said that, last year we had 24 students really approach this. These referrals, because when I asked the questioning, when I spoke to them, the referrals have come from social workers or counselors, St. Helena PD, parents and student self-referrals. So as far as what has the access, our parents have known about them. Students can still self-refer. We do have, one of our new counselors here, and we've connected and let her know ahead of time. And then also our social worker was only here, a couple of months this year. So there's been some connection. However, this can really be looked at if we haven't had the domestic violence. It could be a good thing if we haven't had those referrals. So just kind of highlighting that piece. The next one was our Aldea counseling services. And so this is provided for our secondary students. And we provide, this is also referrals that are done through our counselors and administration. And one of the things that I really began to look at is when do we refer students to what organizations? And I believe, that would be a question that we have. So depending on what the student needs, and yes, there's social emotional, but there's different types. In our case, our counselors are well versed to know if they're going to hand off to Aldea or if they're going to go to Up Valley. Obviously, the health fans are kind of a different piece. So just so you know, that's something that we're keeping in mind. I would like to be able to have something very clear as I'm just someone who's talked to me about as I transition as our next person to step in, so it's for them not to try to figure out who is who. And just kind of have that piece. But one of the things we did do is just with Up Valley is we had them come and present to our administrators. So that's one of the pieces that we're doing is I'm sitting in meetings and being able to know when do they come and present, whether it's at the site or here at the district, for us to know what pieces are, as well as with our parent groups. With Aldea, we've had 13 students have access, and you can see here that we also do prevention for those students and some brief intervention. Moving on to the next one. These are two partners that are really more off-site referrals, Burnett Therapeutic Services, and this came to you early on. I remember you asked a question of who they were, what is this for? And so this is a behavioral and really mental, kind of like a deeper service support that we provide to students. And in Sanford, Sierra Youth Family Services is another one. The Burnett Therapeutic Services is really on a sliding scale or Medi-Cal, so really there's a payment cost for that piece that can sit with families. And then the Sierra Youth Family is also there for our foster youth. This year we have one student in our school district, but we can also use this if we have families who need to connect. So this is more of that family piece, and we do have families and students accessing this. We have a total of 21 students and families so far for Burnett and 15 for the Stanford Sierra Youth Family Services. Go on to the next one, please. Thank you. This one was one that I do want to highlight. This is a 24/7 multilingual support platform. It's a live online call or connection. And so last year, it began to materialize, and Napa County Office of Ed is actually paying through a grant for us to access. I received really great reviews from our counselors when I shared this, because we've had some really good connections just as far as being able to handle it. And so I'm going to show you the next slide. So what we do have is a digital online platform where our administrators, myself and the counselors, can actually log on to see the number of cases we have, the communications we've had, if they followed up with appointments. One of the things that we see, now you see 10 cases there, total of 796 communications. They keep track as to if they're sending a text, if they're doing a phone call, the follow-up. And many times our families, when we refer them, don't always connect. So I'm going to say we bug them in a good way, but it is that phone call. And so this one, I think, is just something, and I really just liked having the statistics on hand to be able to connect our students to services living here in St. Helena. It's kind of much like, they have to access Napa, have to drive out to Napa. That can sometimes be an issue, but at least we're able to connect them with someone any time of the year, multilingual on that. Okay.
One quick question. On the other slides, you talk about the focal population served. That one was blank. Who is this for?
So this one would be for, we're actually for our I'm going to say our secondary students, but it could be K-12, it could be families. Okay. So it would be anyone can access this. It's available. So apologize for not putting that on there. Okay.
Thank you, Director Miranda. So just in conclusion, we listed a few steps, things to consider as we move into next year. Obviously, we have some leadership shifts and changes. We are going to be looking at, as you can see, we do offer a lot of services to our students and families, but we learned about 10,000 Degrees as well, which is another service, and we're going to be trying to see if that's another match we can make for our district, and see what services they can offer to support our students. Director Miranda mentioned, publicizing the scope of services we have to offer to our families. How do we continue to communicate that out to sites, our employees, but also our parents and families that we do. This is a very comprehensive list of services that we have available for everyone. One of the things that the third and fourth bullet really speaks to is we've had some gaps and holes this year around staffing. We did lose our district social worker, which we know used to hold a lot of this support and coordination of these services. And so regardless of what level we look at next year, if it's going to be a district social worker or a community liaison, there needs to be, I think, a person or a staff member that supports the coordination of these services, ensuring not only that all the sites are using them and have access, there's a good referral system, but also collects the data, because that's another piece. It was quite challenging actually to get this level of data from all the different providers and not have that centralized in some way. So those are some of the recommendations we would have. Obviously, as we change over leadership or change over staffing, ensuring that there is some level of onboarding and information that's provided to our staff that these services are available. So it doesn't always have to be a teacher or a counselor that makes a referral. A lunch worker can notice something about a student or a custodian. Those relationships are positive, and if they see someone who's depressed or has anxiety, they can also be part of the referral system. So I think it's really important that every member of the organization understands what we have to offer. And with that, we are here for questions.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees? Questions? Comments?
I have a quick question. Thank you very much for the presentation and for preparing the presentation as well. So Care Solas, is that so it's a grant from the County Office of Education, is that correct?
It's a grant that is paying right now for the access, yes.
So how much longer do we have that? How much are we going to be under that grant for a while?
We have, I believe, 1 more year with that.
Okay. Thank you.
And mine was kind of close. Is there a suicide hotline number? Does that still exist? And how do students know about that if that's out there?
There's a song that they all know. Wait, what's that? There's a rap song that has the phone number. But beyond that, there's also the 988 number that was created. I believe it's 988, which that is all for mental health. It's a national number as well.
And are students aware of that?
It's actually on the back of our student ID cards.
Okay. Oh,
so if you have that handy, if you flip on the back, you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have to make sure we post, that information, and so make it accessible. So thank you, Carolyn, for answering that.
And my second question is just about the when the Olay van bus comes. Is that like a physician's assistant, or is there a physician that's there for those appointments?
So I'm going to speak from experience. When I went on there was a physician present. I would have to just to be 100% sure. So I did go out. I didn't go out there today, but I've gone out there to meet them. So that was that day. But I would have to double check on that just to make sure.
Just curious.
I've gone 3 times, and they all have said it is a pediatrician that's in there.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a
Go, please.
I have a quick question about counseling, because we have Aldea, we have Burnett, we have Sanford, we have CARE. So is there a process, like the kids begin with Aldea, and then if they need more support, then there are the other avenues of support to help them?
So in here, my experience has been is we've really we've used Up Valley, because we have our therapists through Up Valley. So I believe from what I've seen and as I've referred and talked to our counselors, that's really our first place that we go is through them. And then our counselors, just the ones as they've been here, they know they may refer out, say to Burnett or Aldea. There's that one's specific to some other components. If I look at Aldea, there's I don't want to call it substance abuse, but there's some specific pieces. But I'm going to say we lean on our counselors, and really our tier here is to step with Up Valley, because that is probably our largest contract that we have.
So having this variety really helps us to pick and choose which program will be the most beneficial for each particular student case.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and then my other question was around the drug and alcohol counseling.
Mhm.
Is that something that is students elect to do if they're looking for help, or they are required to do?
So as far as what I've understood is usually most of the time it's coming from that counseling office. So there's a discipline referral that happens. I know that if a student needs support and they let us know, then we would connect as well. So they could.
And the other avenues as the diversion program with the PD, that's another avenue into that support.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I had one question on slide 3, and this is a follow-up from yesterday. I think I had asked you, did the second group start in March?
And actually, Dr. Emery, this is actually a question for you. I haven't connected with you since yesterday, but there was a social group that Up Valley was doing with your students. Did the second group get started? Not yet. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, microphone. Trustees, anything else? Thank you very much. I mean, that is a very impressive list of support services. Support services, boy. With that, we're going to take a 7-minute break, and then we're going to come back in and wrap up the rest of the agenda. So, thank you. Do I have my thumbs up back there? Great. Okay, thank you, everybody. Trustees, we're going to do a slight adjustment on the agenda here because we have such amazing audience members, but we're going to do them a service here and kind of just do a slight adjustment. So I need I'm proposing, I need to make, okay, hold on. A motion to move items 14A and 14E to the next items that we discuss. So can I have a motion?
A and E?
A and E.
I
So-
would like to make a motion to move items 14A and 14E to the next items we discuss.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would like to second that.
Great. All those in favor? Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, so with that, we're going to go on to contracts over $25,000 for April 2024. Dr. Vang, please.
Thank you. We're gonna the first contract, we're pulling that, so we're not discussing that at this board meeting. So we're gonna jump over to Pacific Tree Care. I do have Jake here, and Jake has been doing such an amazing job taking care of our trees around campus. So Jake, I think you have some words you want to share with our trustees.
I'll keep it quick. So we've had some tree challenges this year. Dr. Vang, I think we met February 12th, did a walkthrough, set some goals for trying to inventory and assess the trees on campus. Our assignment was inventory, basically any tree over 12 inches in diameter or any tree that has the ability to get over 12 inches in diameter from a safety perspective. And those that are currently over 12 inches in diameter provide a safety assessment on the tree. And we did this by inputting these into a program called Tree Plotter. I'll run through some numbers really fast, and if you want, I can run through some. There's an overlay of our tree numbers. What is it? It is 241 trees on the high school campus. Each of these trees, you want to click on a tree. We'll see. Hopefully, it's over 12 inches in diameter. So each of these trees are assessed for health and safety. We gather attributes. Yeah, that's a good one. Click the detail. You can click the report button. So we gather health and safety details on each tree. This happened to be an olive tree. So health and safety details, not much risk with this tree. So this one would have just been added and photographed. There wasn't an assessment that went with it. I'll go over and drive in a second and show you assessments, but I'm going to back up a little bit. So we did, we inventoried 673 trees district-wide on the 4 different campuses. We accomplished this, we started on the 16th, we finished by the 1st, so we accomplished this in 2 weeks. 673 trees to number with a tag, photograph, put into the database, add its attributes, and then from there we're able to sort this by priority based on safety metrics. First and foremost, we looked at like the immediate emergent situations. Those situations were actually taken care of in process while we were doing the inventory. As we found them, we remedied them. Then we're looking at the items that are a high risk, things that are severe or high in the risk category. Those things are mostly mitigated at this point. We did it during spring break. The only site that we weren't able to work on is the elementary school, and I can pull that up. I don't know how much. It's been a long meeting, and you got a lot more to do. So I don't know how much individual detail stuff you want me to do with this, but I would like to offer my time to anybody here at a later date, and I can take you on a tour through the software suite, which is kind of nice. It does offer the school staff the ability to go in and actually look and input data if they really want to. Right now we're set up on a read-only user status, but they can go in and input data. So we basically completed our inventory by March 1st, and then we double checked all of our trees. And then we were able to actually price and get the high risk work done, with the exception of some of the stuff over at the elementary school, by the end of spring break. Moving forward, what we will be doing is spring break will be our assessment time. We'll come out, we'll assess all of these trees. Now that they're in the database, we can actually perform what's considered an inspection. It's something that lives in the database with the trees. It's not something I can delete or change. Nobody can do that, but we can view it, so that way it lives kind of in perpetuity with the trees. Each tree we run an inspection on, make sure that its status hasn't changed. The goal is to move from reacting to tree problems by throwing money at it to maintaining what we have to prevent tree problems, and that way we don't have to continue to throw money at it in an emergent fashion. It's no longer a knee-jerk, oh gosh, that thing is going to fail, we better deal with it right now. It's, we've been looking at this thing for a couple of years, and management now says, I think it's time to actually work on it. So we're looking ahead, as opposed to trying to Band-Aid and baling wire what we got. I think that's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want me to run through a specific tree scenario or a specific tree report on the database?
I just want to say that Dr. Vang, you provided a link to this report, I believe, in a Friday memo a few weeks back.
Right, you have a report to all the school sites, and if you have questions.
Sure. I think in the effort of time tonight, I know I'm familiar with this software, but if you guys have questions, if Dr. Vang, or we can reach out to Jake. But
yeah, I would be happy to make time. Probably take 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, we did it in your office with Eric, and I think we might have been in there for 40 minutes, but we went through it pretty good. And it's very, very helpful. It's easy to sort things. And it tracks all of the. It also tracks all of the maintenance that we perform. So when we perform a maintenance service on a tree, we add it as a work record. So that way we have a permanent record of everything we do.
And again, the goal here is for us as a district to be proactive about our trees rather than being reactive. And so we've got our trees on a preventive maintenance plan now.
That's great. Thank you.
Really quick question. So once a year, next April, spring break, is then when you revisit the inventory and walk?
Yeah, so Jake and I will have an annual meeting, if not more often. And when we meet, we'll go over all the trees and repeat the same process every year.
Thank you.
If there's some sort of inclement weather situation that happens, give us a call. We'll come out and take a look. Take a walk around. It may not be a full scheduled inspection,
Sure.
but we can come walk to campuses and look.
Great.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Wagner actually walked with us too, so she got to experience firsthand some of Jake's work.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Trustees, anything else? Jake?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking around.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. And then next on the item, we have Napa Electric, who's one of our vendors. Napa Electric will be providing electric bus chargers for our electric buses. As Carolyn mentioned, we're getting 2 electric buses. And so with the electric buses, we'll need chargers. And you see that on this contract as well. And then we have next Commercial Energy, which is a private entity providing us with natural gas. Gopal is here if there are any questions regarding this particular item, but the bottom line is come July 1st, PG and so we get our utility bills is through PG&E. Our gas is currently through Spur. And effective July 1st, Spur will no longer be procuring natural gas for us, so we either have to find a different vendor or we will default to PG&E. And so in working with Gopal, we've did some investigating, interviewing, meeting with different providers, and we've decided that based on what we've learned, we're going to go with, our recommendation is to go with Commercial Energy. And then the last one is for Ubeo. We need to replace our leased copiers over at the primary school. So we have 2 new copiers that we will replace the old ones with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions? Okay.
So did you mention that there was one excluded then? Are we, the Con Ag, are we?
Oh, correct.
The Ag Con
Yes,
construction?
yes, we are. We're taking that off for this board meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So I need to revise the motion to approve the contracts over
Minus.
25,000, excluding the, I'm sorry, is it called Con Ed?
Con Ag.
Con Ag.
AgCon.
Ag Con.
Oh, boy. Contract. So do I have a motion for that?
I would like, okay, now I wasn't listening. I was so busy with AgCon. I would like to make the motion that you asked me to make, but removing AgCon from the contracts over 25K.
Thank you.
Is that what I was
there,
supposed to
yes,
do?
that's correct.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, Miss Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 14E is the approval to issue a request for qualifications to increase the district's pool of architects qualified to provide architectural services for small projects. Dr. Vang.
Thank you. So we've already gone through this process back in 2022, and I'm bringing this back to the board to request additional architects to increase the district's established pool. It makes it so that we can work more efficiently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
No.
Trustees, questions about this agenda item?
So just logistically, so would the architects that were selected in 22, would they need to reapply then? How does that work, or?
John, I don't believe if they are already in the pool, they don't need to apply, correct?
Correct. This is just to add to that pool.
Okay, so you're adding to the pool that we already have?
Correct.
Okay. And we're adding because is it because of where they don't have the schedule to do more work?
We've got a couple architects in the pool now. I think we've only got 2, and so just trying to make it a little bit of a bigger selection so that we can, architects get busy or certain jobs will suit certain architects better as well.
Okay. So it sounds like there's just 2 in the pool right
Yeah.
now then. Okay, then that makes sense. Yeah.
And these are for projects under $5 million.
Just the small projects.
Just
Just
a
the small
number.
projects, yeah.
I had a chuckle about that.
I did too.
Okay, trustees, any other questions? No. All right. Is there a motion to approve the district's request to issue a request for qualifications to increase the district's pool of architects qualified to provide services for small projects less than $5 million as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Miss Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you again for being with
your
us this
time.
evening.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed your time here at St. Helena Unified.
Hey, we had entertainment. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night. Okay, we're going to go back to item 12A, now board-related items. This is enrollment update, district of choice, and inter-district permit. Mr. Aurelio, please.
All right. Good evening as we're getting late in the hour. So I want to provide an update. We've had a number of different conversations at the dais regarding our enrollment process this year. We are a district of choice district. That is our current enrollment process for out-of-district students. I know there's a couple other avenues, our Allen bill for employees, and a couple of just some offshoots there, some MOUs and things like that. But what I'd like to present this evening is just an update to where we're at with our enrollment process, but also a recommendation as we move into the 25-26 school year. We're set for next school year. We are district of choice, but we would have to make a determination this year if we're going to remain as district of choice or consider a different option. So just moving ahead, So as you know, we are currently a district of choice district. We have an enrollment window that is typically in the fall. That's September to November, end of November. And that is when our families who reside outside our district can submit an application to join our district. And that is for every grade level TK to 12. Then the governing board will make a recommendation. There'll be a recommendation on cap levels for each grade level, and that's typically in December or January of the school year prior. And we look at our current enrollment status, and we make a determination of how many students potentially we would allow into our district by grade level. And then in the spring, once we've started to determine what our enrollment might look like, trying to predict what that will look like next year, we start to allow students to enroll from the DOC list. Just some data, because we love data. Here are our current student enrollment. And I think it's really important for us to get a sense of where we are currently when we look at our grade levels as current resident students. Those are students who reside within our boundaries, and those that either land in the DOC, MOU, or LM Bill. A couple other IDA agreements. Those are typically through special education. And as a district, we're currently sitting at 15% of our student population entered our system via DOC. We know that once they're with us in DOC, they get to remain in status with us, and at that point we sort of treat them like resident students. But you can see the breakdown. Our grade levels where we have the largest number of DOC: first grade at 26% and fourth grade at 24%. As a district, we're about 83% resident students, and we know we are seeing a declining enrollment. I did hear, it's not in the presentation, but for kindergarten next year, we're currently sitting at 34 students, which is low. So we know kinders will enroll later into the summer, but it's something we're really watching and being mindful. And same slide, Spanish interpretation. So moving into DOC, some of the things that are some value added with the DOC, our families obviously don't need to reapply annually when they're a DOC and they've been accepted. We've been watching closely current legislation to see if there will be changes made to the district of choice at the state level. SB 897, which is the proposed bill, has made it through the Senate committee. It did pass 7-0. That bill would eliminate the sunshine of this program with the state. Currently, it's set to expire in 2028. If no changes are made, this bill proposes that it continue indefinitely. The other changes that would be helpful to us as a district is if this bill does pass, it would actually increase the funding we could potentially get per pupil. Currently, we receive 25% from LCFF school districts. So for us, mostly it's Napa Valley Unified. We get 25% of the LCFF formula. That's roughly just over $2,000 per student. The proposal in the bill would up that to 70%. Now, reflecting back on the original program of DOC, when it first started, it was 75%, which I think is partly why our district decided to go that way. So we're hopeful that this Senate bill will pass, and that will bring us a little more financial relief. Just to update the budget assumptions in 24-25, we did see an increase in revenue for DOC this current year. We had predicted somewhere around, I want to say 160 to 180,000, and it came in over 200,000. And lastly, from previous presentations, we did look at data around discipline and special education, and making sure that we weren't seeing jumps in those numbers relative to our DOC students, and they were in line with the rest of our district. So as a recommendation, we are recommending that we kind of stay the course with district of choice. Obviously, we want to continue the LM Bill option for our district employees, because that is something that does yield students for us, and it's also a draw when we are hiring employees, because there's a benefit to come work in this district if you have school-aged children. And we'll continue to monitor the legislation because I think it would be helpful. And if we were to shift to an IDA, that would require some changes being made in how we track our students. Currently, we have our enrollment guru to the left of me, and I don't really want to add more on her plate if we can avoid it. And I think right now the system is working the way it works. And that's my report.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions, comments? This is just a discussion tonight. There's no action.
I know we talked about this once, but when we get to 12th grade, is Pope Valley, are those kids considered resident, or at that point they are?
So
okay.
the one thing with Pope and Hell Mountain, so because they're only a K-8 district, and there's not many of these, they don't have a regionally based high school within their boundaries, so they actually can apply and they can go to any public high school in the state. They pick us because proximity-wise we're closest, and that's why we tend to receive those. One thing to note, and I think most of you are aware, we don't receive any additional funding for the 9th to 12th graders that we get from Pope or Hell Mountain. We don't get a portion of the property tax for those students.
And what's the legislative forecast looking like for this SB 897 to pass? I mean, is it looking promising?
I mean, it made it through that first hurdle
Right.
completely. So I
just haven't seen anything like from the legislative analyst office or anything like that. So, I mean, I'd be highly surprised if it goes from 25% to 70%. Given the
it might
current
get
state.
adjustments.
But I mean, that's what I think. Like, are we going to be asked to make a decision before that information is given to us? Because that's usually the way the state works, right? That we're going to be asked to whether or not to stay in DOC and not know if the funding formula has changed. Not that's only one component of it,
Right.
but do you see what I'm saying? It's like we have to put the horse before the cart kind of thing.
Go ahead.
I have a question for you, Mr. Heller, and without getting too specific, but how does it work with kind of that unknown factor of TK in kindergarten? Is it kind of you have plan B, and if 50 kids show up on August 19th, you do this? Or, I mean, is it just kind of, you don't know, right?
Right. The projection is unknown. I mean, our trends have shown certain patterns that it's slow for enrollment this time of year, and then it picks up as we get closer to school. And so we have a sense of kind of using statistics and projections of what we would have. But, if something were to change and we had an influx of students, it does kind of create an issue. Fortunately, our class sizes are pretty small right now, so we would be able to accommodate with 4 teachers, roughly times 24, let's just say, that's 96 students, and we don't anticipate 96 students. So to that end, we are having conversations about staffing at the site right now and how we can best serve students.
And if I can add, just to clarify, if the board takes no action before the end of the year, we roll into DOC. We have to actually take action to get out, to opt out of DOC.
And I understand,
Right.
but that's for the next cycle is what I'm
Right.
And I'm just curious because we've been in this position before where we have to make a decision and the state hasn't graced us with all the information to make that decision. That's all.
And you have to make a decision based on the information which is we know it will sunset in 2028 if there's no change. We know that it's 25% of LCFF. Those things aren't shifting. So you have that information. So at a minimum, you know what you get. Right. Right.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking is where we just we revisit this after we hear how it goes as far as legislation. As far as whether I'm a little bit I'm a skeptic as well as the 70% I don't know. I don't know, but it's possible. So I think that we should just revisit this. Yeah.
But there would be non-basic aid school districts participating in this, right?
Correct.
So I could see why, if you're not basic aid, you would want 70%, and it makes sense.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
definitely.
But I know.
It's those students, it's the districts that are losing students and having to pay 70% of their, to some other district, yeah.
Just one quick clarifying. So my understanding was with IDA, a district could deny a student's request, but they can't with DOC. What's kind of how can they do it in one respect and not in the other? If a student wants to leave a district, how does that work?
It's the specifics of the district of choice process. So for the parent, if I'm applying to be DOC in a non, leave my district to be DOC, that is the benefit of this program, that if you're accepted because of the cap numbers, you get to go, and the district isn't going to stop you from going. Other process, districts can deny. Typically, someone's doing an IDA because the district they're going to has something that their home district doesn't offer, or they work there, or there's some reason why they were requesting that district.
Good. All right. Thank you, and we will revisit this at the next appropriate moment in time. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to, let's see, 12B. It's the request for adoption of Resolution 23-27, Staff Appreciation Week. And I'm going to ask Trustee Kerr to read that this evening.
Excellent.
Okay, so this is the St. Helena Unified School District Resolution Number 2327, Staff Appreciation Week 2024. Whereas providing quality education to our young people continues to be our greatest challenge in education as well as our most vital responsibility, and whereas we rely on our teaching and support staff to ensure quality instruction in a wide variety of subjects in and out of the classroom, and whereas in addition to teaching academics, teachers and classified staff members provide guidance, support, and encouragement to the children of St. Helena. And whereas our staff members go far beyond their contractual obligations to support and touch the lives of children. And whereas it's appropriate that we recognize and express appreciation to the employees of the St. Helena Unified School District and acknowledge with gratitude the care and concern they have for our students. And therefore it be resolved that the Board of Education of St. Helena Unified School District acknowledges May 6th, 2024 through May 10th, 2024 as Staff Appreciation Week, and be it further resolved that the Board extends during this week and throughout the year its sincere appreciation to the instructional and support staff of the St. Helena Unified School District for their extraordinary dedication and professional commitment to the students of the St. Helena community.
Well done for being on the spot.
Yeah, and I wish that we had some of our...
I know. So all you hundreds of staff members listening out there, please know.
Very much
multiple
appreciated.
Exclamation points after
very
all
much
this.
appreciated.
So,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any questions? No? All right. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 23-27 as presented?
I will happily make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf? Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 12C is the adoption of Resolution 23-25, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month 2024. Carolyn, I'm going to ask you to read this because this will be your grand finale kind of. So take it away.
St. Helena Unified School District Resolution 23-25, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, May 2024. Whereas, in 1977, Congress introduced a House resolution to proclaim the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific Heritage Week, a celebration of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the United States, and whereas in October 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed the joint resolution designating this as an annual celebration, which we now know as an Asian Pacific Heritage Week, and whereas, in 1990, May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States, which was on May 1894. And to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869, which in the majority of workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants, and whereas in 1990, Congress voted to expand Asian Pacific Heritage Week from a week to a month-long celebration, and in May 1992, the month of May was permanently designated as an Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And whereas studies have found that the academic needs of Asian American and Pacific Islander students are frequently overlooked. And whereas understanding Asian and Pacific Islander history is an important part of celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have endured and overcome hardships and heartache. In the earliest years, tens of thousands of gold rush pioneers, coal miners, transcontinental railroad builders, as well as farm and orchard laborers were subject to unjust working conditions, prejudice, and discriminations, yet they excelled. And whereas even in the darkness of the Exclusion Act and the Japanese internment, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have persevered, providing for their families and creating opportunities for their children. And whereas we acknowledge these Americans for their contributions to government, industry, commerce, agricultural science, literature, and the arts, and whereas California is one of the states with the largest Asian American and Pacific Islander population, and whereas we acknowledge the historical and cultural contributions of the Asian Pacific Americans and the development of the state of California, and whereas the diversity of these groups, including Asian Indian, Bengali, Burmese, Cambodian, Chinese, Filipino, Guamanian, Hawaiian, Hmong, Indonesian, Japanese, Korean, Lao, Malayan, Okinawan, Pakistani, Samoan, Thai, Vietnamese, and others. And now there may be resolved by the Governing Board of Salina Unified School District, May 2024, that is designated as Asian and Pacific Heritage Month with appropriate instructional activities to recognize the countless contributions that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have made in helping our nation.
Bravo. I know there was a lot in there, so thank you very much for reading that. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly? Oh.
Yeah, so I do want to point out that we linked here the events at each of the sites just to make sure so people are aware on the agenda. So in addition to the resolution, we have items there.
Okay. Oh, got it. Okay, so in other words, you'll link it after. You'll link it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting us know that. Okay, I did ask for public comment. Correct, I did. Okay. Trustees, any questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 23-25 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 13A is under Human Resources, consideration of approval for CSEA number 287, collective bargaining sunshine proposal to St. Helena Unified. Mr. Heller, please.
Okay, the governing board's asked to approve CSEA's sunshine proposal in Article 15 of the collective bargaining agreement. This approval will allow negotiations with CSEA to be scheduled within the next few weeks, so I would ask for your approval.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone present or participating via Zoom who would like to comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the sunshine request by CSEA 287 for collective bargaining as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. 14B is review and consider approval of a revised 2023-24 salary schedule for Director Facilities and Operations. Dr. Vang, please.
So thank you. At last month's board meeting, the board had approved a revised job description for the Director of Facilities and Operations. Today I'm bringing forth a revised 23-24 salary schedule for the Director of Facilities and Operations. The title on this salary schedule will now match the job description, so that's basically what the change is.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone present or participating via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the revised salary schedule for Director of Facilities and Operations as presented?
I'll make the motion of the revised 2023-24 salary schedule for the Director, Facilities and Operations.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Aye.
Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. 14C is the Proposition 28 Arts and Music in the Schools Plan. Dr. Vang.
Thank you. So this year we received Prop 28 Arts and Music funds in the amount of $154,664, and each school site gets their portion, their share of this pot of money. These funds are to be used towards either certificate or classified salaries to support arts and music. So you see here a plan that we have been exploring, working on, and we have. You can see here for St. Helena Elementary School, we've added a 0.2 FTE arts teacher along with the 0.2 FTE band teacher for this school year. For the middle school, for next school year, we're planning on adding a 0.2 FTE orchestra teacher. For the elementary and primary school, we're still exploring our options as it is challenging to find credentialed teachers or classified staff members who can meet the requirements for these dollars. Last week, the state just they just approved a waiver that districts can apply for if we choose to use these dollars towards consultants or other partners and not necessarily paying salaries. And so we have some options that we're exploring to ensure that we have a plan to spend these dollars. So today I'm bringing this forth as an informational item. It does not require board approval, but in full transparency, the district wanted to share our plan with the board so that you knew how we were spending these dollars. These are ongoing dollars, so every year we will get these funds. The amount will obviously change because there's a formula that the state will base the funding on.
You. Is there anyone present? Oh, no, sorry. Yes, I do have to ask for public comment. My apologies. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Trustees, questions about this agenda item?
I have a quick question. This is a use it or lose it, kind of like if we don't use it in that year, it doesn't roll over to the next
year. It does. So each year's funding is you have 3 years to spend it. So, for example, this year our funding, we have 3 years to spend it. So we have till 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26. So we have until 20, 25, 26 to spend this year's pot of money. And then next year's pot of money, we'll have another additional 3 years to spend it. So it keeps rolling for 3 years until you've spent it. And then if you don't spend it, then I'm going to assume that the state will most likely take it. However, these are new funds, and as you know, the state's still trying to figure out their requirements and how to help us meet these requirements, because with these monies, come strings attached, but now we've run into issues of, okay, where are we going to find all these credential folks? So we'll see. Mm-hmm.
I know, quick question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, okay. The piano accompanist, I know I saw in some of the notes the questions about that. So would this person then, we would have to technically hire them if it's, or did that fall in that special exception?
No, that falls in the
something?
20% where it's non-salary budget, so we can use this towards contracted services. So the piano accompanist is actually a contracted service. So a minimum of 80% of our allocation has to go towards salaries. And so that's why we're looking at the waiver option.
So just to clarify this, so this year, we have it set up so that we're going to do for 24-25, an FTE orchestra teacher at RLS, and then we're still looking to see what we're going to do at the elementary school and the primary school.
Correct.
Okay.
We're still exploring our options,
Okay, and
including
at
a
this
possible
time,
waiver.
and then does that include the high school, the 60,560, or is that?
The high school's allocation, that 60,560, they've already spent this year in their 2.2 FTEs.
Okay.
So next year, when they get their new allocation, we'll know, once we know what their allocation is, because every year the allocation amount will change for each school site.
Got it. Okay, so this is for 23-24.
Correct.
So I got it.
And we
got it.
have
Okay.
3 years, we have until 26 to spend these funds.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks.
So you kind of touched on my question. Next year we'll get new money for the high school. Should we assume that we would be continuing what we have because it was successful and well attended? Like so we've already heard that they're doing schedule planning. Are we going into next year assuming that we're keeping the .2 arts and .2 band at SHHS?
We don't have a plan for next year yet because the funding, the amount may change. So we're going to have to explore that with Principal Cento next year when we get the funds, because we can always retro the funds and I can always go back and journal if we decide, whatever the plan is for next year. But what you see here is the plan for this year until we know what next year's allocation is. And we know for a fact that the allocation is going to be less. It's not going to be more. So we have to be careful with that. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess my concern where I'm headed with this is the proposition was passed so that we expand arts. We're getting an entitlement per school site. It doesn't look like we have a plan to continue to expand arts at the high school next year. I assume everybody has this unknown how much money. Do you just say we're going to have those, but it might have to be 0.15 because we have less money? Like, I don't know how you plan.
I would say, Mr. Heller, and we've been talking to Mr. Cento about this, and we know we've got money coming next year. So based on the allocation amount, that'll determine where we go with this. We've been working with the principals, and they're part of the decision making. This year, they were able to hire add an additional 0.2 FTE arts teacher and band teacher. Right. What I can tell you in full transparency is that these 2.2 FTEs are actually over their 60,000 allocations. So we're having to make up for out of unrestricted dollars. So we have to be careful with that.
Okay, so
I can see us proceeding next year with 1.2 FTE, but not 2.2 FTEs, because that takes us over, because this amount has to cover salary and benefits, so when you add that up, we're over.
And if I could just add, the intent of Prop 28 is to fill in arts and music in districts where there's a half-time or less than full-time teacher, and for us, the luxury is we're adding an additional section, and the constraints kind of work against us because the funding for the high school really only supported one section. But to make it work, we had two sections and then offset the difference. This year, we're paying for the section upcoming at RLS for orchestra to try to plant a opportunity for students to learn strings to be able to see if a mariachi band develops out of that for the high school. It's an unknown how many students are going to be in there, or what the impact of that is, and then perhaps the elementary or primary school would have something for next year, but if not, they're working on what the plan would be for the following year. But knowing our state budget is not going to be fully funded, that's going to have an impact on the amount that's given to us, not only this year but in out years. So it's really, I hate this. It's challenging because we can't bank on it. We can't project how much it's actually going to be to say we're going to get X and we can do a section out of that. Because if it's a little bit less than what we would pay for a section, then we have to make the determination we will pay the rest of that out of general fund to support that section for each site.
Or just do 1.2 at the high school.
But remember, every time we add an extra section beyond a 1.0 FTE, that's a negotiable item that we have to create an MOU on.
Right, I remember
So
we approved those this year.
We did, but it just, it's like those little complexities that come along with this funding. It makes it a little more challenging for us to do that.
But we know that's going to happen every time, right? Because we're not planning.
With our arts and music, we're fully staffed, so yes, we will have to do that every time.
That's a known process.
Unless we use a third party, right, like that
Okay,
Dr.
so if
Vane
that
mentioned.
exception comes up.
Right.
Okay. And then, I guess so it would be nice to know that, I guess, it looks like we added to the high school this year. We don't have a plan to add next year. But it sounds like orchestra at RLS might be mariachi, and the intent would be to grow it at the high school, so maybe what your future is a .2 orchestra at RLS and the high school? If mariachi starts one place and grows, is that?
I can't say, I can't say at this point.
And then the piano accompanist, that comes out of materials and supplies?
It comes out of contracted services. So you can move that into supplies, contracted services, anything that's not in the salaries and benefits object code.
Okay.
The other factor to consider too is these dollars are the same across different districts. It's not, so when you think of our salary schedules for our teachers, that 80% of the pot of money is going to cover a lot less here than it might in other districts. So building a .2, which we saw this year, we have to kick in additional dollars just to cover the cost.
Or we could do .2 next year and not 2.2.
Right.
Or two staff positions.
Right. Those dollars don't go as far here.
So we would, I guess, maybe in August, see a plan if we're having something additional at the high school this year? Because I think that's what, did the art .2 account for the fashion show at the high school this year, or no? I believe so. And guitar. So I was just curious if they were not, if students didn't sign up for them, and that's why we didn't have a plan for next year. But I don't know.
And as we revise the plan, I'll keep bringing it to the board as an informational item just to keep you all in the loop for transparency purposes.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is, I think, and I think I'm hearing your underlying concern that is like, just don't let these dollars go to waste. You want to make sure that there's something that we do. And yeah, it's scheduling, but I do think we need to give them some grace and time to A, know the dollar amount, and B, where is it going to fit in with new bell schedule and how that's all. But I'm going to choose at this point to have the faith in that will all come together by the staff, that we'll figure it out. But because I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Sean, but maybe I'm wrong. So, okay, perfect, okay.
Well, and what changes it also is we're seeing their numbers now for 22, 24, when the year's almost over. So this isn't money for next year, it's for this year right now, so that makes it kind of odd as well.
And if, Dr. Vang, just correct me if I'm wrong, but once we spend it for the high school, their allocation in this cycle, we can't spend it again. Like they've spent their money in this particular round of grants. So I think to your question, you're asking for it to be ongoing, and the way it's set up for us is we've spent that for this cycle, and it's a one-year thing, which makes it very challenging for us. Does that make sense?
No, because I thought we get the new money every year. We don't know the amount, but I think I understand.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Feeling good, everybody? Okay. Thank you, and appreciate you keeping us updated as more information becomes available. Okay. 14D, the review of the 24-25 budget assumptions. Dr. Vang, you have 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
All right, I'll make this fast.
Okay.
So the budget assumptions, I basically took what we had in second interim, what we've used this year for our budget assumptions, roll them over into next year. What you see marked in red are numbers that I need to update for next year. As you know, again, putting the cart before the horse, trying to plan ahead when I don't have updated numbers yet. So I will update these numbers as soon as I know what those numbers are, because those numbers are still coming in, but they're coming in slowly from the state. So as soon as those numbers come in, I'll update those. Anything that will no longer apply for next year, I've striked out in the document. And like I said, there weren't major changes. I basically took this year's budget assumptions, rolled them over into next year, reviewed it quickly with Business Operations Committee, sent it to them for feedback, and I'm bringing it to the board for your feedback as well.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone present or via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions about this agenda item?
No, but I appreciated it was easy to see the changes and know, I just felt very informed reading it, so thank you.
Please continue that, because it is really helpful for us non-CBO brains that who don't live it and breathe it every day. So I think, I think my one question on the workers' comp rate, I didn't see anything. I saw a new red amount, but not a scratched out old amount. And I was just curious if that was I'm assuming it's an increase.
Let's see.
I'm sorry, Kay, I lost the page here.
2077.
Yeah.
Okay, so on page 4, why did I do that?
It's actually the top of page 5.
Yes, I'm looking at it. Workers' comp. So, it's in red because that number may change for next year. So until I know what that percentage will be, because that percentage will come from NBSIA. So until I know that number, I wanted to at least mark in red so that you know that number will change. But I did, if you look up in PERS, I knew what that number is for next year, so I went ahead and changed that. But workers' comp, I don't have the numbers yet.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much. Trustees, any?
Yeah, I didn't see this in there, and I didn't expect it, but I just want to kind of talk to you a little about this. So there was a couple board meetings where, when we're talking about the track and field, where I thought it was important. It was my thought that we would put some money aside in order to provide any kind of shade structures or any kind of ancillary things that need is on the blacktop. And I'm thinking shade structures specifically, just because at one time we thought that we were going to use a solar array as a shade structure, and now that's not going to be the plan. So I'm just hoping that we could possibly even put like a placeholder or something in this budget so that we don't have to wait for the 24, 25, 25, 26 budget in order to make any kind of decisions about what we can do at RLS. So I guess I'm asking your feedback on this as well.
Yeah, so I've actually been talking to Great Stone West since the last time this was brought up. I've been talking to them about possible shade benches and shades. I think that was what was brought up. And the cost behind that, what would that entail, so that I would have an idea of what to bring back to the board and share with you as to, are these going to be permanent structures? Are these going to be temporary structures? If we need DSA, what are the soft costs that are going to be added to this? So what you do see here, if you look at page 11, fund balance assigned set asides, there's $2 million set aside for deferred maintenance facilities projects there. So that is one area that we can possibly tweak, revise, if that's the board's priority. We can definitely look at that. There is, like I said, $2 million that's set aside for defer maintenance out of our fund balance.
Mm-hmm. So, and I know that this is just coming from me and not from our board, so I don't know if there needs to be work done as far as, because the rest of the board members might not agree with me as far as this. So I just want to leave it at that, and then we can just move forward with that.
I mean, I support that thought process of yours as well. And so, Dr. Vang, if you could continue to be creative and work with Greystone and whoever else, I think part of the unknown as well is we don't really know how use is going to look like on that field. And so, but as we know how things move along, especially if DSA is going to be involved in all that, I think there's no harm in starting to get the ball rolling, for lack of a better term. And then when we start having activity on the field and we see where people are, where they're standing, where they're utilizing, are we getting a lot of feedback that people are burning up, because they're hot, there's just no protective cover. But I just think that we just need to get it going. So I concur with your concern for that, is for sure. I think we will end up hearing from community at some point. That's my feeling.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it hurts for us to plan. Like I said, I've been talking to Great Stone West, so we have somewhat of a plan in place. But to your point, President Pelosi, I think it's going to be critical for us to see the finished product, to see the complete layout, because I would hate to pre-plan too far in advance and have a plan that we may not be able to execute without knowing what the end product is going to look like once the track is completed. But I've started that conversation with Greystone, and they understand that is the board's interest. So I will continue to have that conversation and keep you posted.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vang.
So I lied. I have a question now that you called my attention back to this page. I feel like at one point we talked about, given our very small deferred maintenance presentation this morning, I wish, earlier this evening, I feel like we talked about, is a $2 million a year set aside enough for deferred maintenance, given how large we've got to a large of a dollar amount to tackle? I don't even know who I'm supposed to be looking at. I guess it's Ruben. Or I don't know what we're supposed to do.
Well, I don't know.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah,
so
and
I don't know how that
think
works.
Tonight, that's going to be our.
It's not, but I don't know where it goes.
Okay, so let's circle back.
Is that
with
a future? Yeah.
Let's plan to circle back and start with the superintendent, and let's figure out how that works for conversations with Dr. Vang and the board and whatnot. So that should be noted, if you would, please.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm not trying to dismiss. It's just I don't know where it goes either right now, and I'm not really sure at this point in the evening it's time to do that. So
Considering I thought it was morning, so yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, so this is that's it. There's no vote on that.
No vote.
Okay. Whew, boy. Okay, so we're going to go on to, thank you, Dr. Vang, for providing that again. Future agenda items. You see what's on there for May.
No student board member presentation?
There is no, she will not be here. So the student board member
A
presentation
recording.
will come up.
A recording.
Oh, a recording.
It'll be a video.
Oh, well, we should have been
And
surprised.
the new school board rep will be introduced, which I feel bad because I feel like you should meet them in person. But
well,
maybe they'll be here. I don't know.
Okay.
They could come through the screen or something.
I'll have to ask Miss Brazil. I'm
Okay.
unsure.
Oh, well, we're excited. Thank you for setting that up for us. I appreciate that. Okay. Trustees, any other questions or subjects for future agenda items?
I towards the end of each year, I always look in the past year to kind of see what we might miss during the year. And one of the things I came up with, what I saw was that I think it was the spring of 2022, is when we had the presentation on the detracking of the math program, math classes. And I'm wondering if now, not now, and not even next month, but possibly maybe in August, have a report on how that looks and what the successes were of it, challenges, just to kind of revisit that. Just a thought.
So this will be a tandem question because for you and Mr. Heller, is August seem like a reasonable opportunity to update the board on how math detracking is serving the students of St. Helena Unified?
Just for flexibility, could I ask for September of next year? Because
Absolutely,
staff will be returning in August, and I do know that Tom Lewis, our secondary math coordinator, is currently collecting data, and so he'll have a lot of data by the end of the year. June is going to be pretty packed.
I'm
but
not even asking June.
I think
That's why
but I think it's a good conversation for us to continue to have, and so yeah, I'd be happy to have him present something by September. Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
board, there's at least support of 3 people for that? Okay. Okay, great. So if we can make a note for September, that would be lovely. Thank you very much.
That'd be great.
Do you want the microphone before we? Oh, okay. Oh,
I had one thing.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
No. And you can tell me this might not be how to figure that out, and I don't want to step on toes. I would like to talk more about like our district calendar, not the schedule of when we have class, but like what goes on that calendar and how that process all works. Just like if you go to the website, I was looking for something one time, some things are there, some things aren't, and I'm just curious, and maybe that's just somebody sitting down with me and educating me on what goes on the district-wide calendar. Is it each school event? Is it, you know, I was looking for like a preschool, something at the preschool, and that wasn't on there. Now, should that be, or,
Okay,
so it's just more education for me and how we decide what goes, if I was looking something up and on that website, how that works.
So unless I'm going to be corrected, my immediate reaction to that is that's a conversation with the superintendent and Erica. That they can, you know, the keeper of all dates and whatnot. I think, but to your point, that it's good to know what kind of gets on there. So, but I think it would be more do it that way. And if there's a paragraph to add at some point that just lets the rest of the trustees know, add it to a Friday memo kind of thing would be beneficial.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Don't kill me.
Okay.
Sorry, bad words. But the other thing that kind of struck me when I was, going back to my handy dandy favorite book.
Okay.
But, you know, we're the ones that are behind, I feel like, when I'm reading this. You know, the schools, they talked about revising their mission and vision and goals already for next year. And when I read the right process, is it's supposed to be starting from the top and the goals trickle down and go around. So I don't know, when does the board, is it a study session with the board to be doing this type of work? It's a future agenda item, maybe not for, next month. But is it a study session? I don't know how this works.
So you're asking about
when does
board
the board
involvement on PLC?
When does the board do their work
On
the
district
PLC,
goals?
district goals?
Oh, okay.
District
Which
goals.
we did talk about.
We did.
So that is.
And we probably want to connect on
We're
that.
gonna need to connect right back on that because we did talk about that the other night. And I think we're going to ask the superintendent to find us an opportunity to work on those district goals.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you.
I think because that, to your point, what they talk about in there seems so much more in depth than what we've always been told. You stay up here, and reading that was like, you should be doing this. And I'm like, wait, I thought we stay. So maybe clarification would be really helpful.
Sure.
I agree, Sean.
And that could happen within the discussion on that. It is about knowing where to jump in and where to let the people who are educators take it from there, right? So, okay. Does that seem clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Got it.
And just one more thing. I'm just thinking out, this is a future agenda. I'm just thinking about Ms. Lopez's, her comments tonight on open session, and if somebody can get back to her as far as the question section.
Already did.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay. You said you wanted to have the microphone for a moment. Did you not tell me that?
I did.
Okay.
I just been sitting here all night thinking of a way to give back what you've given to me. And the truth is I can't. Because being here as a student, sitting here, going through multiple schools in this district has given me everything, so much. My education, my friends, my extracurriculars. This position in particular has taught me so much about the way that this district works and all the time and energy all of you put into every single one of our students, and like it means everything to us. I mean, and maybe we don't know it, but like I'm here for all of them. Like I see how many questions you ask. I mean, even tonight is just a testament. You're here until 10 because you care so much about the quality of our education. So really, I would just like to thank you for everything you do for us. I mean, we get so much out of it. It's our education, it's our minds. There's nothing more valuable than that. So I just wanted to say thank you, and it's been an honor to be here with all of you. You've made it so friendly and so welcoming. I have never felt like an outsider. You've always guided me when I'm confused or I needed help or sat down in a meeting with me. So I'm so grateful, and this has really helped me to become the person I am, and I hope that it continues to be that position. And I have tons of ideas for how to improve or refine. So you can always email me or text me or catch me whenever.
We'll connect before you put on that cap and gown. And
yes. And I will be happy to shake all of your hands at graduation. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn, so much. That was great. Thank you. Okay. That was a positive, great note to end on. So thank you. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Miss Magical will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Wagner?
Nay.
Aye. Trustee Wolf?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Mora?
Aye.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting ended at 9:56 p.m.
I think it was